Hello, hello. Can I hear? Am I audible? Am I audible? Hello.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Sir Avi, can you hear us?
Excuse me. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you, ma'am.
Hear you. Don't
Okay.
worry, we can hear you.
Okay. Uma's
Can you
voice.
hear us?
Hi, Uma's voice is very bleak.
And
Hello.
Yeah.
Good morning, madam.
Okay.
I'm
Morning.
Rao here.
When we have to share the PowerPoint, I just have to click this button called share.
Yes, ma'am. You have to
Yes,
click.
yes.
Okay.
And you can test it now if you want to.
Yeah, please.
Acha, you,
Yeah,
you
let's
please
do that.
PPT on, it seems, before.
Okay. I just started sharing. Can you hear?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, please kindly do full screen, ma'am. Maximize this screen, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Is this okay?
Yeah, absolutely fine, ma'am.
All right. Am I number one, number two, or number three?
Ma'am, you are number 3, ma'am.
Okay. Hello, Uma. Hello, Uday. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
On the
Hello.
screen.
Yeah.
Hello, Professor.
At least virtually.
Uday. Hello, Uday.
Morning.
Hello, Uday ji, namaskar. Hello, Uday, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Ah, okay. Uday is not able to hear. Good morning, Anvita.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I think this sentence, how are you, has become very relevant in this pandemic era.
Yes, of course. Yes, I do.
I can. Are you okay, Uday? I can't.
They can't hear us.
Hello? Hello, HRD? We can hear you. Yeah, is that Rajkumar?
सर am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
सर पर आपका वीडियो बहुत पुअर मिल रहा है मुझे.
वीडियो पुअर मिल रहा है.
हाँ, बिकॉज की पैकेट लॉस भी शो हो रहा है और काफी फ्रीजिंग आ रही है. अगर प्रेजेंटेशन शेयर करेंगे तो विजिबल ही नहीं होगी मुझे.
एक मिनट होल्ड.
अश्वनी जी, सभी स्पीकर्स ने ज्वाइन कर लिया है?
सर अभी एक दो स्पीकर बचे हैं सर.
ओके.
Hello, good morning all. Is Avdesh Kumar Mishra sir is available?
अक्षय, टोटल कितने स्पीकर्स हैं आज? 5 ना?
सर 6 है.
6 है तो कितने अभी स्पीकर्स अभी नहीं कनेक्ट हुए हैं?
Actually, some speakers are in a group, sir. I think I don't know their names, sir.
Okay.
As I can see, there are 2-3 people in the same room. Pawan Raj, one of the speaker का नाम सुन.
So I would just like to request the coordinator of the session just to start the session. Already it is 10. So if you can hear me, I just would request that you can start the session and the remaining speakers can join during the conversation later on. I am Vipin Kumar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of HRD, and I welcome all the speakers for this today's session. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So please, you can start your session, and I think the other speakers can join later on, along with when as soon as we start our this webinar today. Thank you.
You all engaged lecture on the issue of promotion of Indian languages and new education policy the government of India. The theme of today's of Indian languages, the webinar is part of a series of webinars being organized. The series of webinars started on the Teachers' Day, that is September 2000, and will continue until 25th September 2020, covering various topics of education in the light of the new education. For today's webinar, we have eminent speakers who have been scholars of language and linguistics and who have worked on throughout their extensive academic life on various aspects of most of the Indian languages.
Sir, please come closer to the mic. We can't hear you, sir.
The Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysore, a subordinate office of the Minister of Education, is proud to coordinate this webinar. And
We can't hear you.
Sir, please come close to the mic.
Can you hear us better now?
Yeah, it's better, sir.
So, the Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysore, a subordinate office of Minister of Education, is proud to coordinate this webinar, and we are grateful to the Ministry for entrusting this to CIIL. Professor D.G. Rao, Director of CIIL, is moderating the whole proceedings of today's talk, and I would request him to take the proceedings forward from here. Professor D.G. Rao. Good morning to everybody. Language is an unexceptionable component in the education policy. It is inevitable for any education policy to accommodate different mother tongues, and also create scope for the conservation and promotion of languages. The sustenance of the language ecology, especially in a multilingual settings like India, depends largely on how the education policy regulates the resources and ensures the development of all existing mother tongues and languages, irrespective of their status. Such a symbolic growth is possible only when the concerned languages are in constant use, when they act as a medium of instruction, when translation activities happen in them, and when the latest technology are customized in them. The Government of India recently announced the new education policy, which has justifiably given a lot of emphasis on the languages and mother tongue. Today, webinar intended to inform all the stakeholders about the salient aspects of the language component of the new education policy. It is my pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of the Central Institute of Indian Languages. Established in 1969, the Central Institute of Indian Languages is a subordinate office of the Ministry of Education, Government of India. The institution is one of its kind in the country, popularly known as CIIL. This institute works for the promotion of all Indian languages in all possible means. It is my pleasure to welcome you all in this webinar and introduce the themes. You will be glad to know that the themes for the today webinar includes the scope for the promotion of Indian languages in NEP 2020, conservation of language ecology and indigenous cultures, sustaining mother tongues and medium of instruction, development of technology for Indian languages. This webinar is being organized by the Ministry of Education as 4 speakers who are experts on language matters, and it is my pleasure to welcome them as well. We have with us Professor Uday Narayan Singh, Padma Shri Professor Anmita Abi, Professor Avdesh Kumar Mishra, and Professor G. Uma Maheswara Rao. I request all the viewers to listen to the speakers, and if you have queries, please post those queries in the chat box of YouTube so that we can discuss them at the end of the program. At first, we shall listen to Professor Uday Narayan Singh, who will discuss the NEP 2020 from the standpoint of promotion of Indian languages. For the same, I request Professor Uma Rani to briefly introduce the first speaker and also introduce the other speakers subsequently. Now, Professor Uma Rani.
Thank you, Professor D.G. Rao. Distinguished dignitaries, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Education, and other NIC members, expert speakers, Professor Uday Narayan Singh, Professor Anvita Abi, Professor Uma Maheswara Rao, Professor Avdesh Mishra, Professor D.G. Rao, Director CIL, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to everyone. It is indeed both an honor and privilege to introduce Professor Uday Narayan Singh to you. Sir, we are indeed very fortunate to have you with us today. Professor Singh is Dean, Faculty of Arts, Amity University, Haryana. He was formerly Professor Rabindra Bhavana and the first Pro-VC of Visva Bharati Santiniketan. He was former Director of Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysuru, for almost a decade. Professor Singh is a renowned linguist, specialized in translation and lexicography, and a reputed poet, playwright, and essayist in Maithili and Bengali. He also does creative writing in English and Hindi. While at CIL, Professor Singh has been instrumental in executing several major schemes such as the National Translation Mission, the Linguistic Data Consortium for Indian Languages, Bhasha Mandakini, etc. He has authored over 200 academic papers in literary theory, sociology of language and linguistics, and published 58 books, 8 volumes of poems, 12 plays, and many more. He is a recipient of several awards. Sahitya Academy Award in 2016. The Ganganath Jha Memorial Award and Jyotishwar Sanman in 2016. He has lectured on several topics on languages and linguistics in many countries. While he was a visiting professor in Australia, Bangladesh, China, France, Germany, Italy, Mauritius, Nepal, Pakistan, and United States. He has received several grants and honors. He has been associated with UNESCO for several decades and was a member of Indian delegation to UNESCO, France, and United States of America in 2011. Ladies and gentlemen, we rarely get this kind of opportunity to listen to the words of a great, knowledgeable personality like Professor Singh. Today he will speak on the scope for the promotion of Indian languages in NEP 2020, one of the most important topics and the need of the hour. Professor Singh, may I invite you to deliver your talk? Professor Singh, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Yeah, Professor Singh, Professor Yuan Singh. Professor Uday Narayan Singh, can you please unmute yourselves? Once again,
Can you hear me?
you to deliver your talk?
Yes, Uday, yes.
Okay, I'll try to share my screen.
Thank you.
See my screen now?
Yes, Uday, yes.
You can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me begin by talking about the scope for promoting what I am calling bhashas under the National Education Policy 2020. In ancient India, as we all know, education was never thought to be complete without shiksha. Now, what was shiksha? The science of speech sounds. Now, it was assumed that learning one's mother tongue is an understood phenomenon. It is not discussed. It was thought to be inevitable. But the challenge was learning the other tongue, getting to know what others think, how they form ideas, how they form sentences, create new expressions. That has been very important for all of us. Now, that's how languages traveled in ancient India, as we all traveled from one space to the other. It is a common thing that somebody goes to another country, another state, another kingdom, looking for new challenges, new job. And our epics and our mythology, they are full of this kind of stories. It's not surprising that we will have a major epic where Dasharatha would set his sons on a long journey that will take them to faraway land spaces. We are all aware of Hanuman taking those fanciful flights. The other most important epic, we have Pancha Pandava. They lose the game of dice and they are set to move from place to place for 13 years, forest life, and 1 year incognito. Now we notice that in all ages, we had authors like Vidyapati, Kalidasa, Tagore, Gendre, who wrote in several languages. Now, the multilingual scenario that India has, therefore, has always had a great variation in both structure and function of languages, in grammar and use. Even if we read purely literature, not linguistics, something like Acharya Hazari Prasad Dwivedi's Bhanubhat ki Atmakatha, you can easily see that even in medieval India, how many languages, how many cultures were really intermingling. And we know that each of those families of languages have numerous smaller languages. There are many language types. Yet there are remarkable similarities that have been pointed out by MNO, Krishnamurti, several people because of aerial pressure. A lot of us lament that, alas, we don't have a single link language in the country. And in fact, in 1970s, the language planning theoreticians had linked our lack of development or underdevelopment of India to our being multilingual, which was all found to be false in the later day language planning literature. And we all are aware of Prabodh Pandit's work where he said that each major language is linking with the next language, another language. So multilingualism has never been a burden for us. So why should we view it as a problem now? In this webinar on the fallout of NEP 2020, we are going to hear three top linguists. I'm only trying to light the lamp of promotion of Indian languages, but they will be concentrating on the sustenance, the conservation, development, these three aspects. Now, if you look at the entire scenario, language scenario of the country, this is how we are all distributed even among the major languages. Forget about the smaller mother tongues, etc. So this is the way we look at ourselves. And if you look at this, we can easily see that languages in India have been like believable entities. There are no pure languages. A lot of people look for purity, looking at the Sanskrit model or the Latin model, but we are all aware of the French and German and English and Spanish today, which have been borrowing from large number of borrowing from so many languages of the world. There is a give and take, and India is no exception. Our languages have also enriched themselves, Tamil, Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, Bangla, by giving and taking from other languages. We have the texts which are embedded in other texts. So we have kind of a like sentential embedding, we have this textual embedding. And each language actually houses so many mother tongues. Each mother tongue is capable of throwing up newer and newer ideas, newer chandas, newer kind of creativity. We are all aware of Hadauti, Braj, Avadhi, Maithili, Khadi Boli, one after the other, all these bolis, producing great authors and great texts. So it's not surprising if in Terai of Nepal or in remote corner of Mithila, if you hear Lorikayan story, and suddenly you go to Rajasthan and you hear Chandan's story, and you find there are similarities in the storyline and the song and the tune, you know that the ideas and myths and legends have always traveled in all parts of India. Now, as we write in so many languages, because our newspapers, journals, magazines are published in 104 languages, and we speak in so many voices, All India Radio tells me that there are at least 176 mother tongues that they blare their programs. So the trend has always been to absorb more and more speech varieties. Well, it's not surprising that in our plays, kings spoke in one language, women in another, Brahmin used only Sanskrit, although many use fourth variety, but no breaking down of communication. This has been going on for centuries. Now, India as a nation is like what Benedict Anderson had said. It's a kind of imagined community before it became a political entity. And that's true of Nepal, that's true of Bangladesh, true of Pakistan. We were all in our ideas, and the ideas got manifested after the Second World War. This imagination of a nation ties up in four different ways: territorially, economically, politically, culturally. History tells us that there are shared myths, practices, memories, texts. Together, they define a cultural space. So now the challenge is to think what could now we do to promote our own languages and mother tongues. And I'm sure this is a debate which is going on in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Nepal, everywhere. Everybody wants to promote the mother tongue and how exactly this is possible. I find that NEP 2020 is an expression of intent to promote our mother tongue and to accord the rightful place to Indian languages in our curriculum. Now, we take an example here. This example can be replicated in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, everywhere. Because each of our languages is like this. Just take the Hindi heartland. We are told that there are 49 varieties. It's a large space. But what goes in the name of Hindi speech community would include so many states. You know, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Delhi, Haryana, Himachal, Jharkhand, MP, Rajasthan, UP, Uttarakhand. So in this Hindi heartland, till the other day, something which was a boli, Khadi boli, which has become the major language, standard language today. But something which was the standard literary language like Rajbhasha or Avadhi has taken a back seat now. Now, this is something which has been happening in the course of history in Hindi heartland. And I'm sure this has happened, as we all know, this has happened in England, in case of English, the northern variety and the southern variety, how the whole game changed between the early English, medieval English, and modern English today. So the overall, if you look at this scenario, this 20.22, which you see here on your top right screen in the pie chart, Hindi with other mother tongues, this is where the creativity is coming from. So the mother tongues, vernaculars, they are throwing up very interesting set of creativity. And whether it is discoveries in Hindi film songs or discoveries of various kinds of new authors, new generation writers, somebody like Ashtabhuja Shukla coming from Bhojpuri into Hindi, well, you would actually see that the overall picture is some where there is a lot of space that we all naturally have given to our mother tongues. So any instructional material or any technology tool that we're now planning to create for the entire Hindi speech area, we think if it is really a one-size-fits-all kind of situation, it is not. You cannot have a standard textbook which will be applicable for all the large amount of space that goes under the Hindi heart. A very interesting example was given by Rukmini Banerjee in her discussion with me a few days ago on the net, on Facebook Live, where she mentions that she goes to Purnia area in a school, set of schools, to find out about the mother tongue teaching and the reading and comprehension. And as she's reading up a story, putting up a story on the blackboard and reading it up, she comes upon a word called talab. No, this is the story of the Medhak and talab and all that. And as the interesting part started and she used the word talab, the children were drawing blank. So she was surprised. Why is it that children's eyes are not really lit? Why is it happening like that? Then she asked a few children, and it turned out that then the children suggested to her, what is this tala? We don't understand that. Call it pokhar. So you see, the pokhar, which is common thing in Purnia area, Saharsa area, unless you use that, the children don't connect themselves with the story. So this is very interesting that today, if you really have to take up this challenge of NEP 2020 and develop teaching materials, the teaching materials in Hindi must be in 49 different Hindi. There should be 49 textbooks for the Hindi area. There should be similarly textbooks in Tamil Nadu, which is sensitive to Kota, Koda, Badaga, so many other varieties. So this is very important for us to understand. But the crux of NEP 2020 is that multilingualism and power of language learning are the most crucial entities. Now, the way we divided our classrooms in the school, the medium of instruction up till grade 5 and preferably till grade 8 and beyond will be preferably local language, slash. Now, again, it is very prudent to have thought about it that some places home language will work, some places mother tongue will work, some places local language will work. But then there are 3,500 mother tongues in India, and there are so many home languages. And the home language can also be a mixed language, where partly Marathi, partly Gujarati, or part Hindi and partly Gujarati. What do you do? In such cases, very interestingly, bilingualism or multilingual teaching strategy has also been in AP teaching. You can also teaching strategy. In fact, I say that there was a point of time when census was talking about one language, one mother tongue from the enumerators using that. But thanks to Professor Pandit and Professor Chandani, when they were on the advisory board of the census, that bilingualism and then trilingualism data started coming up in our national census. So I would say that that revolution which happened in census, which has given us very interesting data, has also happened in NEP 2020 this time. And there's another very interesting point about the NEP 2020, which says that languages of India, this should be the fun project activity to be taken up by every student in every classroom, in every school, which means that students should be aware of our variety, our culture, just as we are aware of our food variety, our dress variety, our musical variety, our film variety, our variety of stories. We should also be aware of the variety of languages of India, and that should be a serious project which should be taken up. So I would say that in a way, linguistics have been brought to the forefront in this policy document. A lot of debate has happened on three-language formula. We are Indian languages is a direct result of three-language formula. 1968 problems that happened soon after the National Policy on Education 1968 came up, which was very important policy, I would say, where translation was emphasized and language was foregrounded. At that point of time, because of the opposition to that policy, the three-language formula came up. It's a kind of formula to resolve the problems. But here, we are not talking about three-language formula. We are saying here in NEP 2020 is that three languages are to be taught. And that you decide.
Uday, can you switch on your video? Uday, can you switch on your video?
Okay. My video.
Yeah, is off.
Is off?
Yes.
Let me see where it comes, where it is switched. Okay, I don't find.
Just press on the camera. Stop video, on video. In the middle of the. I think. Yes, you are shown now. Right. You are visible.
Stop video?
Yes. That's fine.
Let's stop my video.
That's done. You are there.
I have my video on.
You are there, yes.
Okay, now a presentation is gone. Presentation is still there?
No, sir, it is not there. It's fine, sir.
Okay. So, the issue is that all three languages, they're talking about three languages. And I would say that it's not really a three-language formula that is being talked about here. It's a decision which is being left to the states as to which three languages you will teach. Now, I would even think that perhaps it's possible that a state of Gujarat decides that we would like to teach the neighboring state language, Marathi. not necessarily a Dravidian language. The state of Odisha may think that I would like to teach either Telugu or Bangla. Depending on which part of Odisha you are staying in and you are interacting with people of those.
Uday cannot see the screen of your presentation.
Hello?
No presentation is being seen.
Hello? So,
we cannot see your presentation. We can only see your face. We cannot see your presentation.
Slides. Your slides are not visible.
Okay. Can you see the slide now?
Yeah. Yes.
Can you make it full screen? Can you press F5?
You can enlarge that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all three languages are to be taught. You can see now?
Yeah, we can see.
We can see,
but we can expand it. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. Came to the center, right?
Yeah.
Then the other point is that classical languages will be widely available in schools as options open. Now, we have so far earlier had just one fixation with one classical language. Now, there could be classical Sanskrit, which was the earlier decision. But now the new decision is that any one of those classical languages, classical Tamil, classical Kannada, classical Telugu, or classical Odia, classical Malayalam, or even classical Arabic, classical Persian, all these could be actually be made available in the schools as options. So that is a big change, I would say. And therefore, there are a few suggestions that I have for the Central East Indian languages. And that is very crucial, I think, to think about in a novel manner. There will, of course, there will be criticism on this or the other. The politics of national policy of education is a different entity altogether. We are talking only about the linguistics of it and the possibility of doing the best, using it. We remember that right to education had already talked about in 29(2) F to H, all three provisions. The medium of instruction shall, as far as practicable, be in child's mother tongue, making the child free of fear, trauma, anxiety, and comprehensive and continuous evaluation of child's understanding of knowledge. Now, other countries have been dictating the policymakers, dictating the implementation people, dictating the schools as to how to go about it. But we have given a lot of freedom in the true spirit of democracy as to what the schools will decide, what the states will decide, how the teachers will decide, what the parents will decide. Now, therefore, I think it is very unfair to say that we haven't accommodated multiple strategies. So if we give up the polemics and sit across to think about the issues of how this push towards vulnerable education can be thought about, we would be able to appreciate the nature of our challenge. Now, notice that there are many pathways, there are many strategies to reach the same goal. We have to find out what should be our best goal. And I would think there are a few key words, key sentences in 2020, which are very important, very crucial in this respect. One is respect for diversity and local. So our textbook makers will have to think in 1,000 different ways and include the local context in their own textbooks. Remember, fortunately or unfortunately, because we are doing online teaching, we don't have the compulsion to print all our textbooks. We now know that we can have the same textbook but 200 editions, different editions to accommodate the local context differently, accommodate diversity differently. So do that. I think this is very crucial. There was unit English to Indian languages on textbook production unit which should be activated, reactivated in a vigorous way to be able to understand, to accommodate the local context. Second point that was mentioned in the document is equity and inclusion. Now, this is very crucial that we should be inclusive. It should not only be in the uh, online material, and something which Anvita and her colleagues have been doing in JNU, that should be something somehow emphasized. Also, Tanmay is doing this in Delhi University in a very significant way. Some of our linguists actually have been involved in inclusive education, so I think that is very crucial. Third point that you mentioned is emphasis on conceptual understanding. See, we have only been talking about readability. Okay, supposing class 5 children do not have the problem as other surveys and that they can't read properly class 2 worth material. Supposing they are now able to read class 5 material. But do they understand? Do they get that conceptual understanding? Nobody is actually doing a survey for that. I think this is something which is very crucial for the Central Indian languages because there was a point of time where we had readability and comprehension unit in the CIIL. Long ago, there were a few books which were published, but then after that, nobody pursued that. I think this is crucial that after NEP 2020, in this area, we should pay attention to. And lastly, community participation. Now, we are very good in finding out the community leaders who can participate, who can lead, who can help, who can connect with the implementation of the language policies under the NEP 2020. So these are crucial points. Now, secondly, about the novelty. To promote multilinguality in plural spaces, I think the document encourages each state to enter into bilateral agreement or multilateral agreements with the neighboring states to be able to hire teachers. Now, this is something which is crucial for our RLCs. Now, RLCs have somehow practically stopped being what they were meant for when they were created soon after the CIIL was created through a separate set of documents. Basic idea was that you should train teachers in the other tongue. Now, I would say that now what this document is saying is that talk to the neighboring states, create a program so that you have the bilingual teachers. Because if you look at Kasargod area, for instance, of Kerala, then you would find in Kasargod you have the influences of 3 different states. And this is not surprising. There are so many places like that. Baleshwar in Odisha is another example. There are so many. In Purulia in Jharkhand is an example. In West Bengal and Jharkhand border is an example. There are n number of such examples of bilateral situations, multilateral situations. Get such teachers to do that. There were earlier scholastic and pedantic entities in the school education, teachers who were so pure that they would speak only pure language. I think this is very crucial that when you talk about the bagless days, when talk about the integrated pedagogy, they're also talking about textbooks with local content and flavor. And I think the language game idea that CIL had floated at one point of time, which has again somehow stopped being created. There should be a very important emphasis on the language game creation and using them in an ITC-based creative fun in teaching our Indian languages. So the textbook entity is the national the testing service, various other entities, including National Translation Mission. They should all come up together jointly to help the government to overcome many of these issues that are typically plaguing our school education for a long time. Now, Uma was talking about the Bhasha Mandakini. I'm sure some of you have been aware of the visual world of vernaculars, how beautiful the whole visual world is. And CIL has shown a way. IGNU has also shown a way. Both these agencies have actually been doing a lot of work to promote teaching of Indian literature, Indian languages. Some work has been done by Sahitya Academy through their about 60 different episodes on creative writers, major creative writers. So launch with NCT approval using SCRTs and CRTs together and using our RLCs together. Multilingual teacher training modules where teacher training face-to-face, teacher training online, teacher training with specialized lessons, teacher training using the language labs. This could be focused. And I think the documentaries, that is creating visual documentaries, it's also mentioned in your document, would be very important there. So locate the best teachers and teaching talents countrywide. Some of them may be employed, but many of them have actually not been teaching because many women are married and are really confined to home, but they have been excellent teachers. As mother teachers, they have been very good. We bring them up, we involve them in our online. The films on our mother tongue have been done very well in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, in Bengal, but we should really replicate that for the other states as well. So we need to really ask ourselves if we are ready to do this. The community of linguists are ready to do or take up all these gigantic tasks, and this is not being so purist as to only talk about the doing linguistics for the linguistics' sake. But I think it is very important that we use linguistics for helping out language teaching on a large scale in this manner. And eventually, through all these experiments, generate so much of knowledge in our indigenous languages, our vernaculars, that there is a reverse translation traffic. It should be possible then for our language experiences to go into the other languages. Now, I would take you to the other activity that I have been always involved in last 5-6 years with the ICANN, the Internet Governing Authority. If you look at the internet situation, it's a KPMG report on Indian language, Indian script use on the cyberspace. If you look at this, both Uma Mishra and I have been involved in this activity, and we have noticed with great care and surprise that Indian languages are slowly overtaking English language users. 234 million Indian language internet users compared to 175 million English users. And once in the next few years, the increase will be so much that we might actually reach 735 million if we haven't already. So what was actually Gandhiji doing? I mean, what was he thinking in terms of majorities and minorities? I think we should remember that we are talking about this majority language and minority languages and majority cultural space and minority cultural space. See, everybody is a majority and minority. Tamilian in West Bengal is a minority. But then he is also, torchbearer of a great cultural tradition. It's a great classical tradition. So we are talking, right before India became independent, Mahatma Gandhi was talking about a Rama Rajya, which is not really based on a set of action that you are witnessing today, but really a set of mind change, thought change, in where in independent India, where majority minority would cohabit peacefully, and that is exactly the kind of provision that was made by Ambedkar and many other legal experts while drafting the constitution. So at each stage of our socio-political life, we should resolve what kind of world we want to be in. Should it not be a place where our languages and scripts get a pride of place? There would be challenges. We know that there are many challenges, and one or two challenges I will point out in the next slide. Look at this challenge. It's not easy, you know. There are some languages, some scripts of ours, which are expanding in left to right. Some are expanding on top to bottom. Some are doing both ways. And then, of course, we have the Nask and Nastaliq problem. Sindhi is using Nask and the Kashmiri Urdu using Nastaliq. So there are various kinds of directions that are being used by people, but while creating the level generational rules which have now been accepted by the world community. In fact, we have now reached the second stage of LGRs under the Neo-Brahmi Generation Plan, NBGP, of which I happen to be the co-chair, where we have the leader of the Telugu LGR is Umameshwar, and there are so many others who are involved in that. We have taken up this challenge in a very careful way, and we are slowly going over this so that our languages do not face the handicap on the internet, the access handicap on the internet. Now, we are aware of the power of oral language. I'm sure Anvitaji will tell you about how much of power oral C has in India. Knowledge, economics, medicine, performance, everywhere. We have the oral knowledge system, we have the oral medicinal system, we have the oral mechanisms of management of societies, of families, of communities. We have oral performances, of course, fantastic performances everywhere. Now, to foreground the mother tongues, eventually a school language, what do we need to do? We need to see that these oral languages are also written. They have an option of being written. So, NEP 2020 opens this window of challenge to the linguists on new generation. And I have this last slide here, where I am just putting up a wish list before you. We can only advise from a distance now. We are not part of the institute. I understand there is a lot of pain among people who have been part of this great institution, Central List of Indian Languages, that this is not even mentioned once in NEP 2020. But never mind, our role is very crucial. And I think this wish list that I am putting forward is meant for the new generation of the officials, scholars, linguists who have joined and who are very soon going to join, more and more going to join the institution. That we should think about reliable phonetic writing systems, Unicode adaptable writing systems for many of these oral languages, so that many of their texts can be begun to be written, and they could also take part in the teaching learning activities in the school system, for which we need spelling rules, for which we need style manuals. Now, CIL fortunately has many style manuals and spelling rules experiences. I'm sure you can look back at your technology that we created earlier, or the stuff that we created earlier. Planned efforts to e-convert written and printed contents. Lot of things are written, lot of things are printed, but they are not available on the electronic platform. We need to do that. The SALRC of the Chicago University has been doing some bit of it, but then how much can they do from a distance? Whatever $200 million that Jimny had got and others have got in colleagues, that I have seen how they have been doing, converting many of our print dictionaries into electronic dictionaries. But then there are many defects in that, you know. What we need to think in a more revolutionized manner. We are all aware that right now in the whole world, the 4 major dictionary systems, Webster's, Oxford, Cambridge, these are all working with the same French software. This same French company software with which VCIL has already made connections. And the gentlemen who were responsible for the software design for the whole world of this, they were all willing to come to India and create our own style manuals, our own grammar checkers, our own spell checkers, spelling rules, and the dictionaries. So we need to do that on a large scale. So we need to convince the government that we need to spend money on that. Unless you spend money on, unless you foreground a subject, such a discipline such as linguistics, we can't do much about implementing any P22. Identify the gaps of R&D in the Indic internet ecosystem. There are many gaps. As we have worked on the LGR, we have found out those gaps. In fact, for many of those gaps, Nepal and India had been in discussion. The Bangladesh IT minister and myself, we have been in long debate and discussion, and we have finally agreed on certain solutions. So these systems, this kind of discussion in South Asia will have to take place. Normalization, text editing, text sorting, using Indic. This is very crucial for developing further entities such as e-lexicon, thesauri, predictive rules, STT, speech to text, voice to text technology. Because for inclusive education to work, many of these are very important activities. So the key players here, the content developers, the content creators, the enablers, the access providers, the linguists, the technologists, they have to all work together. It's not really job of one discipline. In a very naive manner, computer scientists had started machine translation systems in IIT Kanpur and various places. When they joined with the linguists, they could realize that there is so much to learn from each other and so much to contribute to each other in developing a better systems. So that's exactly has to be thought about now. For tier 2 and tier 3 cities, how in e-commerce many of them can come up and use our Indian languages, which they have been doing anyway in the traditional khata, but now on the net. This is another challenge that we need to think about. So the multilingual cyber spaces that are very important to be developed and designed and decorated and made use of, made very useful to everybody. That is something which we have to think about today. So these are my ideas, and I thought that to promote Indian languages, we should think of this. And I would stop here, and I would be very impatient to hear the other speakers, what their ideas are. But I thought these are the ideas that I could point out, and perhaps I have not taken away anybody else's point. Perhaps others can build upon these or add new points and come up with new ideas. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rudnarayan.
Hello. Is Professor Avdesh Mishra?
Yeah, my network is slow, so
Has Professor Avdesh Mishra joined?
it is connecting. Can you hear me?
Can you please ask him to stop sharing his screen?
Yeah. Professor Uday Narayan Singh, can you please stop sharing your screen?
I'm trying to do that.
Though it's wonderful to see it. Professor Mishra, can you speak?
I can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me? My network is slow.
All right.
My network is slow, so I'm still. Is it?
Okay,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, but we cannot see you.
We can see. Yeah.
Oh, it's connecting.
Okay. Good morning again. The next distinguished speaker of this event is Professor Avdesh Kumar Mishra, Professor of Linguistics at English and Foreign Languages University, Shillong. He was former director of CIL and director in charge of IFLU Shillong. Professor Mishra is specialized in descriptive linguistics, typology, Northeast linguistics, especially on Tibeto-Burman linguistics, mother tongue education, and related disciplines. Earlier, when he was at the CIL, Professor Mishra executed two important schemes Scheme for Protection and Preservation of Endangered Languages fell, and Bharatavani project, one of the important projects with an objective of delivering knowledge in and about all the languages in India using multimedia. He has wide experience working in Northeast India in several institutions such as Assam University, Northeastern Hill University, NCRT Shillong, CIL of course, and IFLU Shillong in various capacities. He has published several books and journal articles on languages and linguistics. He has received an award for the best monograph on the tribal languages of the Dravidian family by the ISDL Thiruvananthapuram. With his varied experience and knowledge on Indian linguistics and living in the most linguistically diverse part of the country, the Northeast India, Professor Mishra will reflect on his ideas about mother tongue as a medium of instruction with reference to NEP 2020. It will be indeed a great pleasure for us to listen to you. Professor Mishra, may I invite you to speak on sustaining mother tongues and medium of instruction?
Okay. Am I audible?
No, your voice is breaking.
That's because the network is good. Can you see the I'm sharing?
We cannot see him. Yeah.
Okay, so let me share this.
Your voice is breaking.
Just give me one more minute. I'll try the connection. Yeah, am I visible now?
No.
Yeah, it says it's okay.
It's coming up. Something is coming up.
Yeah, I can see you now.
Give.
But your voice is breaking somehow, and audibility is not good. Your voice is breaking.
Why I have been removed from the meeting?
They said you were still there. Yes, we can hear you better.
Okay, now it says starting to share content.
Yes.
Okay, before I go, let me save some time. See, when we are talking about introducing mother tongues as a medium of instruction in schools at primary level, there are certain aspects that we need to take care of. Number one is that we do not know as of now that how many languages actually are there, and how many mother tongues are there, and whether all of them are eligible or suitable to be used as a medium of instruction in schools. So I'll quickly give you a summary of from where we get this data, that how many languages we have, how many mother tongues we have, and what can be done to what can be done to see that which mother tongues can be included as medium of instruction, and how the implementation part can be taken care of. So as we know that in India we have the only source of language data, that is census by Government of India Home Ministry. And as you before that, I'll just quickly say that the mother tongue is in census and in government documents, we define mother tongue is the main language used constantly from birth to interact and communicate with a child by their mother, caregivers, family, friends, and community. And census and other documents, they also make a difference between language and a mother tongue. So every language is essentially a mother tongue, but every mother tongue is not a language. We know that we call something a language is being an abstract socio-political construct. We call a mother tongue a language when it has certain domains of use. For example, if it's used in mass media, education, administration, and so on, and people who speak different mother tongues and they choose one of those mother tongue to be called as language to be used in those domains that I mentioned, then it becomes a language. So every mother tongue is not a language that way because there may be varieties and only one of the variety, one of the mother tongues can be placed in these domains to be called as a language. Now, going to census 2011 recognized raw returns were 19,569 mother tongues. Then they rationalized it on the basis of linguistic descriptions available, editing, and seeing that which mother tongue is connected to which language and so on. And they came down to 1,369 mother tongues as rationalized. Then there were 1,474 mother tongues which were unclassified because we could not determine which language family or which language these mother tongues belong to. And also, most of them were spoken by fewer than 10,000 persons. So they were classified as unclassified and other mother tongues. So wherever you see other mother tongues, that means that mother tongue, a particular mother tongue is spoken by fewer than 10,000 persons. So the languages in mother tongues total, we have 270, out of which 121 have been classified as languages, 22 scheduled languages, and 99 non-scheduled languages. So the scheduled languages, 22 scheduled languages, have 123 mother tongues. And here it's pertinent to keep in mind that when we say that there is a language, then it also includes that particular language as mother tongue. So if in Hindi you see that language is the heading, then it will include certain mother tongues like Avdi, Brajbhasha, Chhattisgarhi, Banjara, Lamani, Sadri, Nagpuriya, Kadiboli, Hindi as well. So Hindi will be a mother tongue. If you select, say, Bengali language, Bangla language, then under Bangla language, you will have three mother tongues, Chakma, Rajbangshi, and Bangla. So there are three mother tongues in Bangla, and out of that, these groups have chosen, or by the system, the political system, one of these mother tongues, which is Bangla, has gone to mass media, education, administration, and that has become a language. And then the remaining 99 non-scheduled languages, they have altogether 147 mother tongues. And the rest have been included as others because they are spoken by fewer than 10,000 persons. So out of these, say, 1,369 mother tongues, we have about 105 foreign mother tongues as well. That includes English, Persian, Arabic, Pashto, German, French, Russian, and others. Also, one important thing is there that census gives you the data. What people say, if they're asked that what their mother tongue is, they'll mention a particular name. And they may not be a linguist, or they may not be actually knowing the linguistic code, the name of the language or mother tongue that they speak at home. So it's possible that we'll have different social identities, like different tribal communities, other communities, SC communities, and they may give the community names or caste names or profession names, etc., or place names as mother tongues, which may not in reality correspond to the linguistic codes in society. So, for example, I have given certain selected communities. If you look at the Bathuris in Odisha, you'll find that population is 2,17,395, but others here are only 35. So even if it's really a linguistic code, if Bathuri is a mother tongue, then only 35% speak it. Others speak Odia mainly. Similarly, if you look at the Bhumis in West Bengal, you'll find that Bhumis as mother tongue, we have only 569 speakers out of 3,76,296. The rest speak Bengali, Hindi, Santali, Munda, and other mother tongue. Chenchu, if you look at Andhra Pradesh combined with Karnataka data, we have 65,181 Chenchu, the community, they'll say, the total persons there. But in reality, they'll be speaking mostly Telugu. You won't find even one in others. That means there is not even one Chenchu speaker in reality. It doesn't correspond. The name Chenchu given in census and the mother tongue. But when they are asked what the mother tongue is, the Chenchus, they'll say Chenchu. So we'll have under Chenchu mother tongue 65,181, which of course doesn't go in census because the census doesn't recognize them as a mother tongue or language because they are actually spoken by fewer than 10,000 persons. Hojai similarly, out of 642, you'll find not even one is included in others. That means there is not even one Hojai speaker. Jamatia, you can see Tripuri, mostly they speak Tripuri. Jatapu in Odisha, you'll find others only two. So Jatapu name in census and the actual mother tongue doesn't correspond. Kachanaga, so we don't find even one Kachanaga speaker, and Kachanaga is not a language, it's a community name actually. They speak these languages, the mother tongues that I have given in the list. So mostly they speak Liangmai, Jemi, or Kabui and others. Honda Tora, which is Kubi in Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. Similarly, you find only 88 speak Konda Tora if as a linguistic code it does exist in reality. Kunbi, you can see, Livo in Arunachal Pradesh, we have 504 persons, the tribal community members, but they speak mostly Adi, which is the standard language, and Livo is the variety. So maybe there is one person who actually speaks that variety called Livo in reality. And similarly in Mesh, in Assam, Mesh is a variety of Bodo. So in Assam, you find others only three. So they may be speaking the Mesh variety. So the community Mesh doesn't correspond to the linguistic code Mesh. So Mesh may not actually be the mother tongue. They all must be speaking Assamese and Bodo and other mother tongues. Munda in Jharkhand, Munda actually is not a linguistic reality. Munda is a conglomeration of many communities and sects. And as you can see in the table in Jharkhand, others include only 427 and Munda only 2088. They all speak some other mother tongues. Pradhan in Maharashtra, others only 12, and the others speak, the rest speak mostly Marathi and Gondi and Hindi. Patelia in Gujarat, you see that out of 1,17,045 persons, others only 17. So what I say, Raji, you can say in Uttarakhand, Ralte in Manipur, we have 17, but none of them speak actual Ralte. They speak in reality other mother tongues, which are related to, say, the Halam or Kuki variety, the language Kuki or Thado. Sonowal Kachari, we have 25 lakh 3,344 community members, but only 332 claim that they speak Sonowal Kachari as mother tongue. So it's not a linguistic code, it's just a community name. And they have all shifted to Assamese. They all speak Assamese, Bodo, and other mother tongues. Tarao in Manipur, you can see out of 1,066 souls, we have only three which actually speak the Tarao variety, which may be actually the variety of Tangkul or Thado. We do not know for sure. Thadua, for example, out of 144, out of 152, 144 speak other mother tongues. Thoti in Andhra Pradesh, you can see that others only 10. Uchai In Tripura, we have they speak Tripuri mostly. Only four speak the variety of Tripuri called Uchai at home. Yanari in Andhra Pradesh, others only 11. The rest speak Telugu out of 5,37,808. Yovid in Arunachal, same condition. So this is true for most of them. Then also another problem when we try to select or choose which mother tongue actually should go to school education or later in administration, you have to take care that census gives also alternate names because people will say that a particular name for their mother tongue, and I have given only few. If you look at the census data of 2011, you'll find that there will be at least 400 mother tongues which have alternate names. So 400 into 2, that will be about 800 mother tongues. So we have to be careful and we have to exclude these mother tongues which have a saying like Baiswari is Avadhi, Bodo is Kachari, Chin is Bom, Didai is Gata, Gorum is Paranga, Ova is Bogun, Kurru is Irukala, Lakher is Mara, Malani is Kanashi, Mayor is Zakri, Mog is Arakani, Multani. All these names you will find. So in reality, they most of them they construct only one mother tongue, and different names for the same mother tongues have been given in the census. So what I'm saying is that we don't have to go by the names of mother tongues given in the census. The linguists and the educationists, including the panchayats, the district administration and the state administration, they have to go to the people and find out that what the linguistic reality actually is and which mother tongues out of these, taking care of these points that I've mentioned, we have to select those mother tongues to be included in the school education. Then there is a mismatch between mother tongue and names and of linguistic codes. For example, you don't find mother tongues called, say, Adivashi or Olchiki. Olchiki is name of the script. Andhra, Ansari, Ardhamagadi, Arunachali. These are either names or say caste, profession, region, etc. Mochi, Mushar, Muzaffarpuria, Mysore, Sikkimese, Vedic, Teli, Mahato, Malla, Marak, Meena. They all may be caste, profession name or clan names. Also, some mother tongues may not be actually existent because there used to be only one or two speakers of that mother tongues. According to census, they gave names of these mother tongues, which in reality do not exist, or it may be spoken by only one person or two persons. So they are not used in the society at a large scale, like Anha, Andaji, Bamida, Barshik, Bajbajia, Dupul, Gangmai, etc. I have given only few. There may be at least 300 as per my estimate of the analysis of census, at least 300 such mother tongues which do not exist in reality. So what I'm saying is that out of 1369, if you exclude the foreign mother tongues, then the alternate names and the non-existent mother tongues, then we actually come down to about only 400 mother tongues. And out of that, 270 are spoken by more than 10,000 persons. So what more you need is that out of 400, about 400, you have to add about 130 or 150 more mother tongues in school education. So that's very important because unless you know which mother tongues will go in school education, you cannot plan, say, having teachers in place or developing glossaries of technical terms or preparing textbooks in these mother tongues. So, like Adi can very well be managed, Adi language, if it's the medium of instruction, the Bokar, the Milang, Miniong, Pasi, Ramo, Libo, Pai Libo, Tangam, they can very well manage with the standard Adi because they all speak in reality the Adi variety, the standard variety. Or even if they speak, say, 5 or 10 persons who speak different varieties, these names that I have mentioned, there is no harm. Or actually, for language planning, it will be better that the standard Adi is chosen to be included in school education. So as of now, we have two things in place: subject of instruction, languages, and mother tongue instruction. So there are about 120 mother tongues and languages which are used in school education. And then we have about 35 mother tongues which are used as medium of instruction, and mostly they are either scheduled languages and some non-scheduled languages, and they are used only in class say 1 and 2, or 1, 2 and 3 in selected schools in Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, Manipur, Sikkim, etc. So what we need actually is that out of these mother tongues that I have mentioned, after narrowing down to about 400 mother tongues, and there are already some 120 mother tongues included, we need to include more mother tongues, which linguistically they'll have a problem. Suppose if you do not include Anal, then they have problem in taking education in English medium or Hindi medium or Manipuri medium in Manipur. Or if you choose AO for Nagaland, then it's good. Otherwise, they'll face problems in having education through English, which is the official language of Nagaland. Same problem exists for Avadi, Badaga, Bagri, Bhojpuri, Vishnupriya, Manipuri, Rajbhasha, and so on. This list is not exhaustive. I have the complete list, but for the sake of having less time, I have included only few. Similarly, we have when you talk about three language formula and including certain more languages for second language, third language, then we can have more mother tongues included in the school education as a subject of instruction. And we have so far neglected the mother tongues, especially the tribal language and mother tongues, which are spoken by fewer than 10,000 persons. They don't find place in mainstream. They are not included. And in school education, they are completely missing. Nobody has taken care of them. And such mother tongues include like Aimol, Asuri, Atom, Gom, Voi, Piate, and so on. I have given only few names. There may be about 100 such mother tongues which need to go to school education as medium of instruction, but they are spoken by fewer than 10,000 persons, so nobody put any emphasis on these mother tongues. Now that NEP 2020 talks about that, we have a chance to include these excluded communities and mother tongues in school education. Now, coming to what could be the solution, how we can go about it, because people have a certain notions that the languages or mother tongues are not fit for school education, and that is because in past 70 years, although all documents mention that, including constitution, that mother tongue should be medium of instruction up to primary level, but and three language formula should be implemented in letter and spirit, but we actually did only tokenism, and all those policies remained on paper. Now with the NEP 2020, if we have the chance to really implement the provisions that are there, and mother tongue based multilingual education can be one solution, where we have up to primary classes, all subjects taught in medium of instruction, which will be these about 400 mother tongues. And at the same time, say from class 3 or 4, we start with oral second language, oral say third language, and then we move on to reading and writing in these second languages. And by the time the child is in class 6 or 7, she has become proficient in the second and third languages, so that when the transition takes place, transition of medium of instruction in class 6 or 7, say from say Kom or Paite or Vaipei, they move to Manipuri or English medium in Manipur, then they are ready to be transitioned to these new mediums of instruction. They have become already proficient. And at the same time, they have learned the concepts of maths, EVS, and also their mother tongue. They develop their mother tongue, their competence in mother tongue as well. So this internationally, it is known that this formula has worked well in many countries, and even in India, in some states, it has worked well. But now is the time that we pay more attention to mother tongue based multilingual education. and in a structured manner, and we have to do it seriously. It should not remain only on paper. And this is internationally given by UNESCO and other agencies, and also educationists and linguists, that this is a rough framework how we can move, how we can include mother tongue as medium of instruction, and also at the same time have one or two more mother tongues, more languages in which the child will become proficient, so that transition to a new medium of instruction in class 6, 7, or 8 can take place. So this is the summary. So you keep everything in orally in the mother tongue in class 1 and 2, which can be done by the Anganwadi workers and teachers. And then you continue with the mother tongue, all subjects in class 1 and 2 and 3. And then class 2, you start oral second language, oral third language. And then we slowly kind of reduce little bit content of the mother tongue. Say it will become only 60 or 80% in class 4 and 5 onwards, and the second and third languages can come in. So this is a rough formula, and it has worked very well, but it was not implemented. Only few districts or few mother tongues could implement it, say about 10 or 15 in the states that I mentioned, but largely this was not implemented. But now is the time that we have a policy in place, and there is the desire and intention is very pure, and we are serious. The administration, the political administration, the government, the state governments, and the central government. So this can be achieved, mother tongue-based multilingual education. Now, there are certain other things that worry the parents, the stakeholders, and the children. One is that these mother tongues don't have writing systems, but that is not true. We have about 35 types of scripts and writing systems, which are used by these 120 school of subject of instruction and 35 medium of instruction mother tongues and languages. And we have clusters in India. So, for example, say Tamil will include Kaikari or the Madurai variety, the standard variety. Similarly, we have, say, if you take Kannada cluster, then we'll have Tulu there. We can have Irula there. So they can use the script used by Kannada or Tamil. In Odisha, we have Koi, Paranga, Didei, but they live in the same cluster, and so they can very well use the Oriya script. The same is true for Nagaland. If all the 16 Naga languages are used as medium of instruction, the Roman is already used, because the English is the medium of instruction right now, and English is the official language. And all the languages, whatever they write, AO has newspapers, Angami is taught up to PG level. So they have the standardized Roman form of writing system. So these languages can easily adopt the Roman for that. Similarly, the languages in Maharashtra, they have already Marathi script, which is based on Devanagari for Marathi. So so Koli or say Halvi, they can easily shift to, they can easily adopt Devanagari script. So in all the states that is true, because these dialects, these varieties, these mother tongue, they all in the end kind of form a cluster, and they have umbrella thing where they go to the varieties of Marathi or the varieties of Bhili. They can all assume themselves in the language like Bhili or Marathi. In Gujarati, the same is true. So they can very well adopt the regional language scripts or the national language scripts, that is official language script, Roman and Devanagari. Now, a second thing that is needed for having these mother tongues as medium of instruction is that we need to have technical and scientific terms. So, see, the varieties will not differ so much from the standard ones. So, if you are preparing, say, Adi, Bokar, or Minyong, or Sangam mother tongue, so they become medium of instruction, and so they can very well choose the terms from Adi. Similarly, in Manipur, because most of them are Kokichin languages, and Meitei has already the scientific and technical terms in place. So Thado, Paite, Vaipai, Kom, Gante, they can easily take scientific and technical terms from there. And up to class 5, actually, you do not need a complicated set of scientific and technical terms. In maths and EVS, certain basic scientific technical terms are there, for which they'll have some local terms. For example, they may have a word for air, they'll have it for water. So environment can become a combination, a compound of, say, air and water, as we do it in Urdu, abo hawa. That is literally actually the air, the wind and water, and that gives the idea of environment. So the same thing can be done. Or if they have problem in adopting terms like oxygen, nitrogen, we don't have our languages don't have words for that. So we can adopt according to the phonetic system of these mother tongue. So oxygen can be oxygen, or nitrogen can be nitrogen. What we have done in Hindi, instead of nitrogen, we have nitrogen. So things like that can be done. And various agencies have to come together. As of now, we have CIL working separately, CSTT doing something, SCRTs and diets doing something else, literary societies want something else, but they never come together. So once we have chosen that these 400 mother tongues will be used as medium of instruction, and we need these glossaries, these technical terms, all these agencies can come together, and it's possible to do it within 1 month. We can work online simultaneously. We don't have to be physically present, have workshops, and develop these glossaries. We can do it through online mode, and simultaneously we can have hundreds of workshops going on at the same time. Another problem that is there, that in past 70 years we gave so much emphasis on mostly English. Our education became English dominated, or also in some areas Hindi dominated, or Assamese, Gujarati, Marathi, the scheduled languages and so-called majority or dominant languages. So these mother tongues, which are smaller, they had kind of inferiority complex. And since their mother tongues were not used in different domains, they were not visible in different areas, different domains, so they thought that it's useless, it's not meaningful to have education in these mother tongues. They are unsuitable because they didn't have dictionaries, grammars, standardized orthographies. So they thought our mother tongues are useless. And they also thought that having education in mother tongue will not get them employment and movability in the society, in the larger society. So that's why they have this inferiority complex. They kind of hesitate. But this can be done if we educate the parents. We have more interactions with the panchayats through, say, diets and SCRTs, literary societies, and parents can be convinced that now we are going to implement it, and the administration is adamant and they're very serious. And when we have these things in place, what I have mentioned, then most of these communities will be most willing to adopt their mother tongues as medium of instruction. We need to educate them, reassure them that their children are not going to lack. They also worry that if they have education in their mother tongue, then what will happen to English education or Hindi education, or some other regional language education? So now that if we have in reality seriously done three language formula and mother tongue based multilingual education, where they'll also be learning 2 or 3 more languages and they'll become proficient in 5 to 6 years, then they can be reassured. And very soon we'll have a situation where almost all the communities will be willing and they'll accept their mother tongues to be included as medium of instruction. Another thing that problem is that of teachers. See, in the past 70 years, we have not been able to even give teachers for the scheduled languages, and also for those non-scheduled languages like Mizo, Khasi, Garo, which are there in school. but we were not able to provide teachers for these languages, to teach languages as subjects. What to talk of teaching using these mother tongues as medium of instruction. So we need to have teachers in place, and the teachers should be placed, and they should be assured that these teachers are proficient in the mother tongues which are going to be used as medium of instruction. Another problem is there that in government schools, the teachers are transferred very frequently. So there should be a policy in place that teachers cannot be transferred either, or if they are transferred, then it should be assured that those teachers are proficient in the mother tongues which are used in the area, in the schools where they are being transferred to. And also, the teacher training component should be strengthened. And language, see, in B.Ed or DL.Ed, the focus is mainly on English, Hindi, and other regional languages, the scheduled languages. That should have a component on the non-scheduled and minority mother tongues also in place. People also worry, I'm coming to end now. So people also worry that if we have 400 odd mother tongues as medium of instruction in schools, that will be very costly affair. But we have international data, we research, and that all come to a conclusion that it is not true. Having mother tongue as medium of instruction is very cost effective. Initially, for startup, we'll have some 3 to 4% of the total budget given on education. We may have to allocate that for mother tongue medium of instruction. But after 2 or 3 years, we'll see that from 3 to 4% of the cost, it will come down to about 1% or less. Because, see, the same teacher will be teaching. If she's proficient in the mother tongue, you don't have to have so many teachers for maths separately, or say English separately, or EVS separately, and second language the teachers separately. One teacher in one class can take care of so many subjects. And here, if the teachers are trained properly, then they can also include content-based language instruction, where the content from EVS maths can come in second language and also in mother tongue. One teacher will be doing so many things. And once you have prepared the teaching learning materials, the textbooks in these mother tongues, you don't have to change it for so many years, because the language is not, these mother tongues are not going to change so much. So we don't have to say recur this expenditure on preparing the materials. Once the script is standardized, that's not going to change in say for hundreds of years or thousands of years. So we'll have that thing in place. So initially the cost will be a little higher, but in the end, eventually we'll be getting good returns, and also we'll decrease the dropout rates, repetition rate. If the students are educated in their mother tongues, then they'll not fail. They'll all learn well, and they'll also be proficient in second, third languages. Transition will be easier. So if the students are not out of school, repetition won't be there. So we don't have to spend so much on these students who have dropped out or who are repeating. So that's all what I wanted to say. NEP 2020 has given us a chance, and all these policies were there in place earlier also in NCF 2005, and also in Constitution, in other policy documents, but we did not implement it. But now that we have backing of the central government, and so we need to work the state government, the education department, SCRT, diets, involve the panchayats, the Anganwadis, and it can be done. It is possible. The linguists and CSTT, NCRT, they all have to come together. They don't have to work separately as separate entities, not connected to each other. And that way, it can certainly be done. And it won't take, as I assume, and that if we take care of these things, it can be done, all the preparations can be done within 6 months or so. So that from next year, after we have this corona pandemic decreasing or becoming less severe, and we have the vaccine in place, and the new session begins. So from 2021, we can have these 400 odd mother tongues as the medium of instruction in the schools, and we can really include these tribal communities and these minority mother tongues, the mother tongues which are spoken by fewer than 10,000 persons, come to the mainstream and give them chance to be included and take benefit from the society and the nation as a whole. So thank you all. Yeah, now I can.
Now we can see him.
Hello?
Hello, now we can hear you. I see you both.
Yeah, so I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
Dish. That was very
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
You informed us about the true picture of so-called mother tongues and languages. So that's really good.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Mishra. Professor Abi,
you.
your attention, please. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed my great pleasure to introduce the next speaker of the event, Professor Anvita Abi, to this august audience. Professor Abi, formerly head Center for Linguistics, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, is an internationally reputed linguist. Her work on indigenous languages and other lesser-known languages of South Asia has been exemplary and is widely recognized in this world. Her pioneering work on the critically endangered languages of Andaman Islands deserves a special mention here. She is currently working on Nicobarese languages, Lura and Senenyo, with us on a commission project of the CIL. She has held various prestigious positions such as President, Linguistic Society of India, Honorable Director, Center for Oral and Tribal Literature, Sahitya Academy, New Delhi. Professor Abi is indeed a key figure in the field of language documentation in India and abroad. He has been a visiting scientist and professor in many reputed institutions abroad. He is currently a visiting professor of linguistics and ICCR India Chair, Simon Fraser University, Canada. He is widely published in the areas of language documentation, typology, language policy and education. He has several books, dictionaries and journal articles to her credit. She was awarded the most prestigious Kenneth Hale Award in 2015 by the Linguistic Society of America, Padma Shri in 2013 by President of India. Dear Professor Abi, I am very happy that you could take some time off your busy schedule and be with us today to share your views on NEP 2020 from the perspective of indigenous languages and cultures. This is, of course, one of the important topics to deliberate upon to make concrete plans for the promotion of indigenous languages in higher education. We look forward to hear from you. May I invite you to speak on conservation of language, ecology, and indigenous culture.
Thank you, Ma. Am I audible? Thank you. Thank you very much. And namaskar to everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
So share your slides.
Yeah,
Yes, it's coming.
Yeah.
Yes, it's coming.
I'm trying. Yeah. Can you see it?
Make it full screen.
Okay. Is it okay?
Great. Yes, it's great.
Okay, thank you everybody to be waiting all this while, and I'm very happy that Professor Uday Narayan Singh and Professor Avdesh Mishra discussed, because that has somewhat eased me in the sense that my job is a little easier, because the notions of language and mother tongues are much clearer now than it was before. I'm going to talk about, as Uma said, on conservation of language ecology and indigenous cultures. Most of my observations and presentation today are based on my personal experiences and also by the experiences that I gathered while teaching some American Indian languages in Vancouver in British Columbia, which had been very eye-opening. And this has been a very important aspect of language ecology, that we must preserve all this that you see on your screen. First come first, we must understand what do we really mean by language ecology. It has been described by various linguists, including the famous linguist Hogan, in different ways, but I will come to the crux of the matter, that initially and foremost, we are concerned with the variation. The variation is how many ways a particular language or languages can be varied across the region of a country and across the social structure of a society. So variation is very much important, and this is part of our language ecology to study and preserve. Similarly, diversity of languages is another very important feature, and you know that language, as Professor Uday Narayan Singh showed, that in India, languages are very diverse, drawn from different language families, and this is a sign of ancient civilization and sustainability. India houses, as Professor Mishra also said, 1,369 mother tongues, and the term mother tongue has to be redefined. But I've come to think of it, out of these so-called 1,369 mother tongues or languages or verbal repertoire, 1,000 or so are preserved in oral tradition. And when I say preserved, I mean they have been preserved for thousands or maybe hundreds of years, out of which these 197 are being declared endangered by the UNESCO. And Central Institute of Indian Languages is right now concerned with preserving and protecting these languages, which is a very bold and a very good step towards the maintaining the language ecology and preserving the language ecology of the nation. Then language ecology is also concerned with the sociology of language, and that's a very big issue which sociolinguists have studied, and it's very important that people's attitudes towards their languages and others' languages. Professor Mishra did touch upon this briefly, because how the mother tongue speakers look at their languages and how do they regard the other languages, and this is a very important aspect to be considered part of the language ecology, so that when we build our national education policy, we take into account these attitudes. And then finally, the language ecology is very much concerned about how language preserves the environment in which it is spoken. In fact, there's an inextricable relationship between language and its environment. And I'll just give you a little glimpse. I've worked very largely on this aspect, but I'll just give you a glimpse to show you that how these are so important phenomena that if you kill one, you kill the other, and vice versa. So language is embedded in environment, and these are the 4 different aspects of language ecology which we have to conserve and preserve. Language encodes our culture, our beliefs, our worldview, sense of right judgment, and plethora of information regarding disaster management, an extensive knowledge system. Now, some of you might think that how can language preserve all these things, but I'll give you very few examples to show you that it is, in fact, a very big documentation guide for preserving all this information. Language is inherent part of our culture. In fact, they constitute one entity. You cannot segregate culture from language or language from culture. Why? Because language represents way of life, and culture also represents way of life. Now, the few examples I'll give you, when I just said that it also encodes the disaster management information, I am reminded of tsunami when it came in 2004. The Andaman tribes saved themselves because their language had the knowledge preserved how to recognize the sea and the waves of the sea and the after effects of the sea if there is a havoc like tsunami, and they preserved, they ran to some safe places and they saved themselves. However, people like us or Nicobaris and other people who didn't have this knowledge stored in their language, you know, India lost something to the tune of more than 5,000 people in that area. So the tsunami and other disaster and management techniques, you know, now I'm also reminded of this California burning fire as you're witnessing on your screen these days. Actually, the American Indian languages spoken in that area had all along information how to save your environment, because this is nothing but a violation of the environment. We play with our environment and that brings all these havoc. And these, how to preserve these things or how to preserve your environment is coded in your language. So language codes a vast knowledge system about your environment, which actually gives you sustenance, which gives you sustainability. And it is very important for life, continuity of life. So language cannot be considered just as a subject. Language is part and parcel of way of life. I'm also reminded of a recent study on one of the Nicobarese languages called Luro, which is an endangered language declared by the UNESCO. And we were surprised that the language has several distance markers depending upon where the person speaking is standing and what and how far is the place that he's referring to. So a person standing in Port Blair in a particular shop referring to Port Blair will use a different kind of a distance marking, while the same person, if he's standing in one of the Nicobar Islands, is referring to Port Blair. And within the island also, if somebody is referring to one village which is 20 miles away, will use a different kind of a marker than to the village which is 40 miles away. And there are many other nuances about it, which are very, very fascinating, but it tells you a lot about the society, about the culture, and about the way of life they had been leading. Similarly, I'll give you a very small example. In the most of the languages of North India have many names for the varieties of wheat preparation, like roti, missi, paratha, puri, bhendvi, and so on and so forth. Now, these are untranslatable. Let's say it's not the question of untranslatable English or any other foreign language. It is untranslatable in the community where the environment is not of wheat eating. For example, they are untranslatable in Tamil or in Telugu, but what they have, the varieties of rice and rice preparation, are not translatable in Hindi and other North Indian languages. So language encodes your way of living, the way of you have been culturally evolving your society, what have you been eating, what you've been consuming, what have you been experiencing in your daily life. So the linguists now believe, unlike Chomsky, that language is a bicultural hybrid. It's a co-evolutionary approach which has been propagated by Nick Evans and Levinson recently, but we all believe that this is a language is actually a product of intensive gene and cultural evolution which evolved over the last 200,000 to 400,000 years. Yes, so I'm talking about the evolution of human beings, Homo sapiens, and this has been a combination, a combined product, language and gene, because there is a culture involved in it. So every culture gives you a different kind of a language system. And this is one of the reasons why we are so concerned about the dying languages or endangered languages, because they are decreasing at alarming speed, and their decrease is giving us an alarming bell that we are also decreasing the knowledge systems which were with us in the last several hundred years. According to one study made by UNESCO, every fortnight a language dies across the world. And it is somewhere taking away a plethora of knowledge system with it. So I will not go into the details of this diversity of languages that we have in India, but just to give you a point for think that this kind of diversity that we have of today in Indian languages is basically historical, the way each language has evolved internally, as well as how languages have been evolved across the time in contact with other languages. So contact with other languages has been a very important aspect, because none of the present languages that we speak is the same or are the same as they were spoken or used, let's say 500 or 700 years ago. Languages change, and they change because of the contact. I'll give you a couple of examples in this. But historicity, both external and internal, as well as contact, that makes the languages diverse. So in other words, language ecology explains fundamental differences in how languages work, with long historical cultural roots that explains many diversities, and it involves an understanding that why we are diverse and how come we have sustained this diversity, because we have been technologically and culturally adapting ourselves. So this adaptation of human beings have been a constant adaptation, and that's why we are there where we are. Language influences your thought, which itself is energized by your culture. It is a specific culture that we derive certain meanings, or in fact, how we cognitively absorb any concept is also decided by the words or the language structure that we are using. For example, there are many constructions across Indian languages which are very unique to a particular language family or a particular language group, a particular language, because the language has grown among that particular culture. I'm reminded of these expressive morphology, which most of you are acquainted with. Recently, there has been a book on expressive morphology by Routledge explaining the South Asian richness of expressives, and they never find any way in your grammar. However, they are very interesting because Khasi alone, or let's say most of the Himalayan languages, and it is also very area specific, most of the Himalayan languages have wide range of expressing an action in different ways. So Khasi has 57 ways of walking, of 52 ways of eating, of 59 ways of crying. And they are different words. Now they are different words, but they are derived by expressive morphology to express the feelings, the codification, and the cognition. So what a Khasi speaker has in his cognitive capability, we don't have, because we have not grown into that culture. And that means that language is intact, is actually preserving its culture in its language. And unfortunately, now the younger generation is losing these structures. So they are losing also part of the culture. In other words, they're also losing part of the cognition. And that's a very serious loss. Similarly, there are many other examples I can think of. Echo formation, which is typically of a cultural trait of South Asia, or not only for full South Asia, but some of the languages of the South Asia. And look at the second person pronouns in most of the Indian languages, like tu, tum, or aap, is very much required for a hierarchical, organized social structure, but it's not needed in English. And when we speak English, we always feel sometimes at loss how to address my guru as you, because we don't have another you. So these are just few examples to show you that how language encodes the culture, which is way of life, and your social structure. Actually, language produces an organization of experience. There are names I collected, was fortunate enough to collect 97 different words for birds. And each name, not each I should say, but majority of the names were very transparent in their meaning. And when we compared with the scientific names, that 49% of the names of the birds in Great Andamanese translate the same way the scientific word will translate. It almost appears as if the Greek and Latin copied Great Andamanese. Similarly, so these are the things which basically tell you that how language exposes itself to the cultural nuances. This is just a few examples of Khasi that I said. So Khasi has the word called Yait, means to walk, but you can have Yait bak bak, Yait byang byang, Yait bran bran, and so on and so forth in expressive morphology, which gives you various ways of walking. And imagine how much this indicates the perception of the community of the walking. I was talking about the cognition, and it's very important that the language encodes this cognitive aspect of power of the society, which can perceive these manners in so many ways. There's another example from the Maya tribe of South America. This tribe had 9 different words for color blue, and I have given those colors on the slide. And as you can see that each shade of blue is different from the other. But when this Maya language was translated into Spanish for making a multilingual or bilingual dictionary, since Spanish does not have different colors for 9 different colors for blue, and in fact these blue colors were there because they used to spot these different colors in butterflies in the jungle. Though when the dictionary was made, obviously these 9 colors were decimated to only 3. In other words, it's proving beyond doubt that when a language dies, 6 butterflies disappear from the consciousness of the people. And just imagine. So the cognitive power is so diligently engrossed in language, which is so amazing for us to grasp with. This brings me to the very concerned issue that when a child comes to the first, let's say, preparatory schools, as the NEP 2020 says, right now, in fact, NEP 2020, as Professor Uday Narayan Singh said, it's a very good intent, and I think the philosophy behind NEP 2020 is very laudable. In fact, for the first time, the linguists are happy to see what they have been saying has been incorporated. However, we have to make arrangements on the logistics of it, that how we are going to implement it. So coming back to what I was saying, that right now what had been happening when the child comes to the school, he already has some vocabulary of his mother tongue in his verbal repertoire. But what we do a very great damage of great vocabulary shift in early stages of learning. So a child already knows what is red and blue and green in his language, but when he comes to school, we either teach him in Hindi or in English or any other state language that this is what it is. Now, we don't increase his cognitive power of conceptualizing the colors. We are basically making him maybe translators, and that also a bad translators, because he had to memorize. Many times children have to memorize the numerals in the other language when they already know the new number system. They already have the concept of numbers in their language. So we should keep away from this tendency of vocabulary shift of a child when he comes to the school, whether it is Anganwadi or whether it's a class 1 or class 2, because this induces inferiority complex, as Professor Mishra also suggested this, because then your ancient languages, because these are mostly oral languages and they're culture bound, it creates an inferiority complex among the child, and he doesn't want to either go to school, so the dropout rate is very heavy in the rural areas, or when he goes to school, he's totally disinterested in learning. And ultimately, we produce second-rated literate children. So not only that, I have also noticed that this technique is producing amnesia regarding indigenous knowledge. When the children grow up, they don't remember anything about the knowledge system that resided in their languages. Each language is unique as it constrains the interpretation of a particular linguistic structure with a semantic domain. For example, English constrains the interpretation of the gender, third person, because you have he, she, and it. So a person learning English has to conceive this idea that there are 3 different genders to be specified. However, Hindi does not. You see, and many other Indian languages do not, because Hindi has only wo as a third person singular and ve as a third person plural. But we don't have the distinction between he, she, and it. Conversely, Hindi constrains the male-female distinction because all nouns are grammatically gender sensitive. So we have male plus masculine and minus masculine, but Bangla does not. So, each language is unique. So we cannot say that you only teach one language or you don't teach the other language, because each language, because of its uniqueness, also brings the perception and the cognition power of the community that it speaks. Similarly, we notice that Great Andamanese language, which is on the brink of extinction, I'm very saddened to inform you that there are only 3 or 4 speakers left in this community, and they also don't speak the language because of inferiority complex. Anyway, the language is very rich, and it has been very now grossly, I should say intensively and extensively documented, that it has 2 kinds of past tense, non-past and past. In fact, 2 kinds of distinction, I should say. There are 3 kinds of past tense, but 2 distinctions, past and non-past. And non-past includes both future and present. Now, this talks about a philosophy, how a community perceives future and present in one, because they think they are the hunter, basically hunter and gatherer community, and the future, it is far away. They don't really think much of it because it's the how hunter community lives. It lives by day. So this is a very interesting concept which is reflected in the grammar. So there is, as far as the past is concerned, they have immediate past, remote past, and narrative past. So when you collect narration, and the past tense used in the narration is very different. This experience and transmission of experience across generations is part of the culture of the Great Andaman Society. And similarly, this kind of transmission of experience through language is part of other societies. Professor Singh showed this map. However, there is one addition has to be made here, that now we have identified Great Andamanis as the 6th language family, and there is a Tai Kadai language family here. So we have 5 language families. Actually, I show you this. There are 5 language families in the mainland India: Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, Austroasiatic, Tibeto-Burman, Tai Kadai, and the 6th language family resides in the Andaman Islands. Now, each language family has diversity in opulence. And Indo-Aryan and Dravidian, Austroasiatic, especially Austroasiatic, has large number of languages, so is Tibeto-Burman. And each language, as I said, is unique in its respect, in the respect of grammar, in its vocabulary, in its richness of phrases and other things. And we have to pay attention to this richness. You have already seen the census figures, so I'm not going to dwell upon that, except the fact to bring to your attention that there are around 800 to 1,000 mother tongues which are never written down. But they have been passed on by intergeneration transfer for hundreds and thousands of years. That means oral tradition is very strong and had been strong in our country. If you compare with 2001, it seems we lost 266 rationalized mother tongues or unwritten languages. But after listening to Professor Mishra, you may take this figure as with a pinch of salt. The new census discusses 57 varieties of Hindi. So now the Hindi and its varieties are more than 49, and we have to take this into account while designing our syllabuses. And when the census reporter comes, or the census enumerator comes to your house, he's basically talking about your spoken language. And at spoken language, linguists don't think that there is any difference between Hindi and Urdu. So if you combine the figures of Hindi and Urdu for the comprehension of the language and for speech of this language, you would come to the 51% of population who can understand or speak in varieties of Hindi and Urdu. But this is not the time to discuss that, so I'll move on to the aspect of the language ecology, which has been preserved by the oral tradition. This is a literature. Oral literature is the repository of the critical knowledge of the literate and the non-literate society, and serves as a vehicle for artistic creation, whether it is dance, which is of great value and beauty. The narratives are actually imbibed and woven very intricately into poetry and songs and dance, myths, fables, texts for religious rituals. These are all provide the portrait of meaning of life as experienced by the society at a particular time and place with the existential challenges. And I'm happy to see that NEP 2020 does incorporate some of these aspects of oral tradition into the early stages of learning. Because oral tradition encapsulates the traditional knowledge, the traditional beliefs and values about the environment, as I just said, and the nature of the society. it is intertwined with performing arts. And if you take the Navarasa theory, you see that the Navarasa theory is emoted in dance, in music, in drama, and many other even performing arts like painting and the whether it is on the paper or it's on banana leaf or any other places. So the performing arts are also imbibed in the language. And there are many, for example, with dance, there's always a music which is sung. And there are Patichitra Kathas and other things where the people are, the folk especially, are painting something at the same time they are narrating a story. And the entire story is converted onto some kind of a canvas which is made of banana leaf or some other things. So the performing arts and the language which goes with the performing arts are also intertwined. So this represents our culture in totality. And this is constantly evolving as the society is evolving. We have multiple languages and bilingualism is our nature, which is not a very new phenomena. We had been bilingual. And we had not only been bilingual and multilingual, we had also been very tolerant for other languages, which has produced what is known as linguistic area. In other words, we always, some of our linguists think that we can perhaps write a core grammar of Indian languages because there are so many similarities across the languages, despite the fact there's diversity of language families. Some of the features of the common linguistic traits which are found in almost all the languages which have been in touch with each other, and that's why they are not there in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which proves that if the languages are not in contact, they will not develop these features. However, these features are developed in most of the languages of India, be it Austroasiatic or Dravidian or Indo-Aryan. Some of the Tibeto-Burman languages again don't have because they have been away from the mainland contact. So these are important aspects because the significance of linguistic area tells us that the similar word formation presupposes of sharing of cognitive environment and conceptual space by the speaker and the hearer. Had not been so, we would not have been able to understand each other, and we had not been able to associate the same word formation process with the same similar semantics. So this is an important conclusion. The second is the use of similar structure exhibits an intricate, intensive and stable language contact that marks the age-old and strong bilingualism. And in fact, I feel that this basically indicates a very strong solidarity, feature that we had been living together in some kind of a social cohesion. Otherwise, with so many 1,000 plus languages, India would have been a chaos, but it is not. So I move on to the next slide, which is an interesting finding that genomic studies, if you look at the population genetics studies, that also indicates something which linguists have been saying. That is, they reinforce that there had been convergence and contact between languages. That means our Indian culture, which emotes these two things, are certainly to be studied and studied. So if this is true, we are perfectly suited for multilingual education system that NEP 2020 provides for. We have to decide the modalities, and we have to, because this system, which is a system which respects others' languages while excelling their own, should be laudable. I'll give you a couple of information slides on language and environment, that how it is so important that language has to be studied at a very early stage, the mother tongue especially, the indigenous knowledges and indigenous languages should be studied at the early stages of life because they encode your knowledge about the environment, the medicinal plants, the how to protect yourself from various kind of environmental hazards, and so on and so forth. In Orissa, before the Green Revolution came, I was told that there was 1,700 varieties of rice. And the Green Revolution somehow made the soil irretrievable for such varieties. And indigenous knowledge of rice cultivation, of course, was lost along with the what you call the taste. And when I interview these tribes who used to eat this rice, they used to say we'd have lost even the names of those tastes because we don't taste those rice, and that rice had much better taste than the modern rice. I'm not criticizing Green Revolution. Green Revolution was certainly needed, but homogenization kills, some kind of diversity which is harmful to the culture and the cognition. That's more important. Similarly, we recently found a plant in Nicobar Islands which is used for as a medicinal plant, but it is also used as an instrument to catch fish. And the same plant was grown on the Andaman Islands, but the tsunami destroyed the entire vegetation. It grows along the sea shore, so it completely got destroyed. However, in Nicobar Island, in some places it is still saved. And the knowledge about this plant, which is called hua, is amazing, and we have noted very extensively about the uses of this plant because now the language, this is in Sanenyo, is dying. There's another slide which I must bring it to your notice because we also worked extensively in Nilgiri Hills, and we found that they had several varieties of mushrooms. And each mushroom had a different quality, different name, and a different season to grow. However, because of the tea plantation, which is certainly more lucrative, the entire land has been converted into tea plantation. The mushrooms are not growing in as many varieties, and the names they definitely are lost because the Nilgiri tribes now call it kume. Initially, they had several names. I have just brought you Jai Krishna's study of 4 or 5 pictures, but we have something to the tune of 20-25 of them. So what I'm trying to say that language and environment is certainly a very important aspect that has to be preserved and conserved. What we need, as has been said by my 2 speakers earlier, is that we do need to script our oral languages, and maybe government can think of a National Commission of Indian Scripts, or they may interest the same thing with the CIL, but CIL has many projects going on. I do not know how much can be done by one institute, but we certainly have to have a very institutionalized support to form scripts for various oral languages. And as Professor Mishra said, we don't have to have too many scripts because I think Devanagari is a very scientific script and can be certainly applied for many of the languages. In fact, we gave the Devanagari script to many of the tribal languages in the Hindi belt and also in Andaman and Nicobar. By the way, now we have 12 states and union territories which come under Hindi belt or Hindi area. So all these languages can be easily transcribed in Devanagari, of course, with some diacritic marks. I believe that the interactive multilingual dictionaries can also be prepared so that we have various kind of indigenous knowledge and cultural aspect stored in this. We did some kind of an attempt on Andamanis, but all can be done. Now the solution lies where, though NEP does suggest multilingual education, but I have been propagating multilingual education in phases for last several years because I think that it is certainly a doable phenomenon, but it has to be done with some thinking. So I'm sure that CIL and other bodies like NCERT and the other language related bodies will put their heads together and find a solution. However, I have something very small to present here to show you that how it can be adopted in multilingual education, various phases. The first the first question after the NEP was launched had been this. There have been many write-ups in newspapers and discussions on the TV. People are thinking that government is imposing Hindi. Actually, it's not. I read the NEP again. It's not being imposed. It's being suggested. So the whole matter is suggestive. And let me tell you that learning of Hindi as a subject is essential, as this is the only link language that is used by urban masses all over India. And we have to agree to this fact. In fact, in late 1990s, JNU and Delhi University conducted a ICSSR project to find out the acceptance level of Hindi across the length and breadth of the country. And this is our findings indicate that the Hindi in its non-standard variety for intercommunication is accepted across the country, especially among the tribals. The northeastern tribals, especially now, there are intermarriages taking place, intercommunity marriages are taking place because of Hindi. And the tribals in Jharkhand, in Chhattisgarh, feel very elated if they know Hindi. So Hindi has to be taught even in the south. The acceptance level of Hindi is much higher than it is generally taught by the common person. I would request people to access this ICSR report and they would get to know more about it. And the other aspect is that Hindi does give mobility, and this you must have all faced, especially the field linguists know very well, that Hindi does give you mobility across the nation. So I'm not propagating that Hindi in its literary form or in its very high literary aspect of Hindi should be taught, but Hindi in some form as a subject certainly should be taught in India. In fact, in recent phenomena of migrant laborers, when it came to help them to extend their help, and we realized that Hindi is being used most to give any kind of help or any kind of interview that has to be taken from them. So and then there's another question that has also been raised in the media, that why we should learn English, it's a foreign language. Number one, English is no longer a foreign language. We are also talking in English right now. It was accepted by Sahitya Academy long ago as one of the Indian languages. We have our own English, just like there's Australian English, American English. So we have to learn English, there's no doubt about it. But we must learn it first as a subject, not as a medium of education. And then the medium of education should be taken maybe after class 4. And for higher education, we can certainly take education in English medium. But that is a state decision and they can decide accordingly. I have a long paper also, but I can also make this available, that how this one by one can introduce these languages in phases. As far as the NEP is concerned, this is the basic structure, 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. And in the first 3 years, which they call foundation courses, the first 5 years are actually the foundation courses. They do advocate mother tongue teaching. I would use the word local language because there are more than 20 definitions of mother tongues within the census of India from 1900 and odd time. So let's say local, what I mean by local language is the major minor language, which is a non-scheduled language of the place. So it is the dominant major. If you don't like the word dominant, but let's say major minor language of the large population base. And this can be taught in the foundation stage. In the phase 1, when the child is between 3 to 6 in Anganwadi, Balvatika, preschool, whatever you call, this language has to be taught, as Professor Mishra also emphasized, in the oral forms. So you can teach many aspects of physics, you can teach many aspects of chemistry, of environmental science, anything in oral language, which is not very difficult. I mean, it's not very difficult to tell a child in his mother tongue that why there is a day, why there is a night, how does the earth revolves, how does the sun play its role, what does the moon play its role, how do stars come out, why do we see them only at night, and many other things. So this can be done definitely in the local language so that the child absorbs, and his cognitive aspect is already so powerful that he can absorb very, very fast. I personally believe, and this I've seen with many other primary school teachers, they also agree that the child emphasis on writing should be done till the age 4, because your motor area, that is your hold on pen or pencil with fingers, is not as good at that time. So it's better to educate the child in oral form than in the written form. As it is, writing is not a very old medium, as you all know. And it is oral tradition, and oral medium has been with us for thousands of years. So the local language may be taught only up to preparatory class or up to class 5, and then it can switch to the state language. I have brought 2 slides for you because just to show you that how this MLEP, multilingual education in phases, can be adopted to preserve our language ecology as well as our culture. And I have taken Hindi states vis-a-vis non-Hindi states, because the policy will run similarly in both. but I've given some examples. So for example, let us take a Hindi state of Rajasthan. The local language, let's say there are 8 languages in Rajasthan, but I've taken the Marwar area. So let's say Marwari is the local language, that is the mother tongue or of the children coming to school or in Anganwadi. So in the foundation stage, let the child learn in Marwari, which is your phase 1. In phase 2, which is class 1 and 2, Marwari becomes the medium of education, and maybe the written form and Hindi as a subject. So we are still at the foundation group which the NEP 2020 promotes in phase 1 and phase 2. In phase 3, which is class 3 and 4, you may include English and South Indian language as subjects. As Professor Mishra emphasized, you may do this as in the form of oral, because after all, when we learn the language, we only learn the language in oral form. We never learn the language, our mother tongue, in the written form. However, this should be done at the class 3 and 4. One can easily add languages. There's one more thing I would like to question the myth. Sometimes parents think that so many languages will confuse the child or will stunt his cognitive aspect. On the contrary, by brain research, the neurolinguists and neurologists have proved beyond doubt that a bilingual brain is much more plastic, is much more adaptable, and it also saves you from Alzheimer's diseases, kind of diseases like amnesia and Alzheimer, and the later old age problems, because you had been bilingual in childhood. And there has been proofs by major studies made by the neurologists and neurolinguists. So at the class 3 and 4, what I'm suggesting is one can add English and South Indian languages as subjects, and Marwari can be medium and Hindi as a subject continues. This is the preparatory. In phase 4, the standard Hindi can be used as medium, and other languages can be switched to subjects, which includes Marwari, English, South Indian languages, and so on. In phase 5, which is class 6 and 8, Hindi or English medium and other languages as subject, and Marwari may be dropped. And classical language like classical Sanskrit or Persian or Pali may be introduced in middle age, and in higher secondary or secondary stage, you have Hindi or English medium continues, because there are many states which want English medium in 9th. So the provision I'm making, or I'm trying to suggest, can be done here. And foreign language perhaps can also be introduced as a subject, and other languages can be taught, but the South Indian languages can be dropped at this stage. So in the first stage, in the 6th, 5th stage, you dropped the mother tongue, and then in the other, in this stage, you can drop the addition of the South Indian language. The same formula will apply to the, let's say, non-Hindi state, Karnataka, where I'm taking the area where Tulu is spoken, and in the foundation stage, Tulu should be the medium. Kannada can also be taught only as a subject. In phase 3 and 4, you can add English and Hindi as subjects. Tulu can become the medium, and Kannada as a subject continues, but from class 5, Kannada becomes the medium of education and other languages become subjects. And this is the preparatory. And in phase 5, just like in Hindi state, the classical language like classical Tamil, classical Kannada or Sanskrit or Persian can be introduced. And in phase 6, a foreign language or other language can be used. Now, so this is what I had been suggesting.
Madam, can you sum up, because we are out of time now?
Yeah, I will. This multilingual education in phases actually gives us enough opportunity to receive basic education in mother tongue, and also builds respect for it. It also derives opportunities for the job, for the people who are living in the rural areas, and classical language also can be taught at higher levels. Thank you.
Professor,
Thank you.
Anvita ji. Next, I think, next speaker. Please, Professor Uma Rani, please introduce yourself.
Right.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
The last but not the least speaker of today is Professor Uma Maheshwar Rao, one of the eminent Dravidian linguists of our country. Professor Uma Maheshwar Rao was formerly head professor and director Charles, University of Hyderabad. He is currently serving as professor in the same institution. Yet he had the privilege of working under the guidance of late Professor B.H. Krishnamurthy, the doyen of Indian linguistics, for his PhD thesis in historical linguistics. He has varied research interests and has specializations in historical linguistics, computational linguistics, machine translation, Indian language technology, nonlinear phonology, linguistic genetics, Dravidian, Mongolic, Turkic, and Finno-Uralic linguistics. He is one of the pioneers in machine translation in India, with several decades of experience in the field. For the last 2 decades, he has been busy with the linguistic genetic reconstruction of common source for Dravidian, Mongolian, and Turkic language families. He has published about 400 articles and several books on Indian language technology, Indian language in crisis, mother tongue education, and on the origin of Dravidian languages. He has received many awards and honors such as Tanagidugu Ramamurthy Telugu Award in the United States in 2019, Navyarushi Sanman in 2004, and so many other awards from Government of Andhra Pradesh. He is one of the key members of the General Council, National Academy of Letters, KSA, New Delhi. He has been the president of Dravidian Linguistics Association. Professor Uma was one of the first few interdisciplinary researchers who brought new trends in the research culture in the humanities. He designed and developed alternative and applied research involving computer science, linguistics, and humanities in the early 90s and has brought many changes in the linguistic scenario of our country. He developed and released public utility software on behalf of union and state governments. It is indeed very inspiring to have such an eminent scholar amid us in this event. As we are aware, technology has penetrated in all walks of our life, education being the most important one, especially during these difficult times of COVID-19. Technology should be exploited to its best to deliver high-quality higher education, thereby promoting teaching of Indian languages. The question is how to do it effectively. I believe we will get the answers for this from Professor Uma Maheshwara's talk today.
Thank you. I have very little time. Yeah.
Professor Uma, may I invite you to the talk on development of technology for Indian.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can see your slides too.
Professor I have one request. Please kindly
yes, sir.
You touch upon more of NEP and with concern to the higher education aspects. Please.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Professor D.J. Rao. And thank you, Uma. Sorry. Okay, Uma. And also thanks for the other two who have helped me in actually logging in, etc. That is Tariq and Narayan. And also thank my predecessors who spoke about the scope for promotion of Indian languages, Professor Yuan Singh, and the conservation of Indian languages by Professor Anvita Abi, and the sustaining mother tongues and medium of instruction by Avadhesh Mishra. Thank you. And of course, most of these 3 papers actually sync with my paper, the presentation. It particularly focuses on development of technology for Indian languages and also touches upon the higher education, certain passing remarks. And this is about the new educational policy and the 2020, which promises that the medium of instruction until at least grade 5, but preferably till grade 8 and beyond, will be the home language or mother tongue, or the local language or the regional language. This is exactly where actually all the linguists are looking for the ages. Thereafter, the home and language shall continue to be taught as language wherever possible. And this is how actually that we will take up to see and show how language technology is relevant for this. In cases where home language or mother tongue and the textbook material is not available, the NEP 2020 says the languages of transaction between teachers and the students will still remain the home language and mother tongue. This is where exactly language technology comes. The transaction between teacher and the student must be still mother tongue, even though the material is not available. So now the language technology must come into the picture, making it transparent. Of course, teachers will be encouraged to use bilingual approach, including bilingual teaching and learning materials. And these things will be enabled by language technology in the future. Language technology aided by the combination of artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to be one of the most important disruptive technologies in the immediate future. Please, I'll recall again, it is going to be one of the most important disruptive technologies in the immediate future. It will change the entire global scenario of linguistic ecosystem. Soon, the so-called global languages will not remain global anymore. Mother tongues will rule the roost. India is a country of 1.3 billion people, and people are its strength. There are a total of 270 mother tongues grouped under 221 languages, and Constitution of India recognizes scheduled languages numbering about 22, which cover about 97% of the population. According to a study, okay, the 82.73% of GDP of India, gross domestic product of India, is at the constant price is calculated for 2004 and 5, comes through the Indian languages. I know, again, I focus upon this one. According to the study, 82.73% of the Indian GDP comes through the use of Indian languages. Now, the study decides that language planning in India shall be based on the empirical facts of this kind. NEP 2020 comes with a prodigious assurance, a welcome relief indeed to the population of India. One of the fundamental principles that will guide both the education system at large as well as the individual institutions within it are something like this. Extensive use of technology, that's stated in the NEP 2020, teaching, learning, removing language barriers, increasing access for Divyang students, and educational planning and management. These are the 5 things actually the NEP 2020 promises through language technology, and asks people to develop language technology for these things. Enjoyable and inspirational books for students at all levels will be developed, including through high quality translation technology assisted as needed. See this one again. It focuses on high quality translation technology, which is technology assisted in all local and Indian languages. No languages debarred from this. All local and Indian languages will be made available extensively in both school and the local libraries. Okay, I'll go to the next one. For the enrichment of the children, and for the preservation of the rich languages and their artistic treasures, all students in all schools, public and private, will have the option of learning at least 2 languages, the classical languages of India, and its associated literature through experiential and innovative approaches, including integration of technology. Again, so now language technology has to come into picture, okay, to simulate all these things that are promised. In particular, assistive devices and appropriate technology-based tools, as well as adequate and language-appropriate teaching and learning materials, as noted in page 27 of the report. And NEP 2020 says, develop and support technology tools for better participation and learning outcomes. Use technology extensively to reduce human interface to ensure efficiency and transparency in their work. Strong and innovative government initiatives for adult education to facilitate community involvement and smooth and beneficial integration of technology. To expedite this all-important aim at achieving 100% literacy, right? In order to make high-quality learning material, and importantly, written and spoken material, which is available to the public in various Indian and foreign languages, an Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation will be established. This is actually the NEP 2020 promises it, and now this IITI shall also make extensive use of technology to aid its translation and interpretation of efforts. Rightly says that at NEP 2020 at 21.1 rightly says that at the level of society and the nation, literacy and basic education are powerful force multipliers. Use the term. It is a powerful force multipliers which are greatly enhance the success of all other developmental efforts. Worldwide data on nations indicate extremely high correlations between literacy rates and per capita GDP. The correlations between literacy rates and per capita GDP of most of the developed countries show that they have achieved high literacy rates, that is up to 90% and above, because they made mother tongue as the medium of instruction school education. India failed to achieve higher literacy rates because we moved away from the use of mother tongues as medium of instruction. Look at the AI SSCR 1997, 2002, and 2009 reports, where it has shown that 4.99% to 15.49% increase in English medium at the primary level. Now, NEP brings to people the promise of using mother tongue and the home language as part of medium of education. To summarize, NEP 20 proposes mother tongue and home language instruction in primary education and the use of technology to enable young children with various linguistic backgrounds to access higher quality learning material, both spoken and in the written form. It also promises, wherever necessary, promoting multilingualism and the power of language in teaching and learning. Teachers will be encouraged to use a bilingual approach, including bilingual teaching, learning materials, right? I have discussed this, and so I'll skip this. And now, the technology development for Indian languages has come of age, actually. TDIL has its vision, technology development for Indian languages had its vision and the mission statement that digital unite and language for all, and communicating and moving up the knowledge chain by overcoming the language barrier. These things will be achieved only through language technology. Over the last 3 decades, TDIL has truly diversified its activities for the proliferation of the language technology tools, applications, and other resources in various languages. Research and development of technology for Indian languages is largely promoted by TDIL. Some of the following include unification of encoding standards. Unicode encoding of Indian language scripts has become the standard encoding in all the Indian languages technologies, and the Indian language technology standardization for all Indian languages. And the barrier of script, uniform script conversion across all the Indian scripts has become the common source today. Thus, it enables to read and write in any Indian language in any script. TDIL other efforts include mobile applications. Use of Indian language applications on mobile has appreciably enhanced our communication in Indian languages across the globe. The corpora initiatives. Digital corpora, 3 million word-sized monolingual, raw, enriched corpora of various sizes are built and they are made available in a number of major and minor languages. Projects such as digital corpora of 3 million words length, running text samples, monolingual and raw corpora of 12 Indian languages like as in Hindi, Urdu, Kashmiri, Punjabi, Marathi, Assamese, Bengali, Odia, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, and Kannada. These are funded by the TDIL and developed by NRLC, ERLC, and CIL Mysore. Projects such as Indian Language Corpora Initiative, Department of Information Technology, Government of India created parallel annotated corpora in the tourism and health domains in 12 Indian languages with Hindi as the source language. ILCI is a consortia project with 11 members, including IIT Madras and JNU, ISI Kolkata, Utkal University Odisha, IIT Mumbai, Gujarat University at Ahmedabad, Goa University, Dravidian University, AP, and Tamil University, Tamil Nadu, and Punjab University, etc. They have participated in this. Speech Corpora, TDIL, DITY, sponsored the development of annotated speech corpora, which is very much necessary for the development of the machine translating systems for 3 languages, particularly Bangla, Assamese, Manipuri, and CEDA Kolkata, and Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, and Kannada have been developed by IIT Madras and IISc, Bangalore, Hindi, Punjabi, Marathi, Urdu, developed at CDAT Pune. Indian language speech technology, speech database developed by Linguistic Data Consortium for Indian language at CIL Mysore, and MLA Corpus, the enabling minority language engineering. Written and spoken data involving 13 Indian languages have been developed there. Electronic digital lexica for Indian languages involving major Indian languages and English have been developed as part of various projects like Anusaraka at IIT Kanpur, University of Hyderabad, at IIIT Hyderabad, Angla Bharati, IITK, Anuvadaksh. Angla Bharati is developed at IITK and Anuvadaksh at CDAT Pune, and Thesaurus and dictionary building tools, and E-Mahashabdakosh is a domain-based bilingual and bidirectional Hindi-English dictionaries with the pronunciation have been developed at CDAT Pune. Indo-WordNet. The Indo-WordNet, in principle, is a linked lexical knowledge base of WordNets of 18 scheduled languages of India. Assamese, Bangla, Bodo, Gujarati, Hindi, Kannada, and Kashmiri, Konkani, Malayalam, Manipuri, Marathi, Nepali, Odia, Punjabi, Sanskrit, Tamil, and Telugu, and Urdu are some of these languages that has the Indo-WordNet. Morphological analysis, word-level analysis of Indian languages developed as byproducts of various translation projects and available for Hindi, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, Marathi, Punjabi, Urdu, and Bangla. As part of the shallow parser tools for Indian languages, morphological analyses have been built for Kashmiri, Dogri, Konkani, Gujarati, Odia, Assamese, Manipuri, Nepali, Santhali, Bodo, and Hindi at KALS University of Hyderabad. Ontological analysis for Indian languages, the semantic feature-based analysis of words for selected Indian languages, namely Hindi, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, and English, are available. Hypergrammars for Indian languages, a non-linearly organized dynamic grammars based on the hypertext format for various Indian languages. Machine translating systems. The ultimate goal of computational analysis for language technology and the generation of languages is built for machine translation systems. So the ultimate aim of all this language technology development is actually towards the goal of machine translating systems. And the development of MT is a non-trivial task. It began in the early 80s for the last millennium. The major sponsor has been Indian Language Technology Proliferation and Development Center, TDIL, at MIT, Government of India. It has initiated various projects like Angla Bharati, English to Indian languages, and Anu Bharati, Indian language to Indian language at IIT Kanpur, and Anusaraka, language accesses between Indian languages to another Indian languages involving Hindi, Marathi, Punjabi, Telugu, and Kannada, and Tamil. And Mantra, that is a Rajabhasha, that's a Hindi at the English Hindi machine translation systems, and Pravachika, Rajbhasha, that is basically Hindi and English system, and Mantra, again for the documents to translate at Rajya Sabha, and also English and Indian language MT phase 1 and phase 2 contributed to the development of English to Indian language machine translation system at different places by CDAC and Pune, and developed the role of a consortia leader. And ILMT, phase 1 and phase 2, that's called as Sampark, are of a group of rule-based bidirectional hybrid MT systems that enable translation across Hindi, Punjabi, Telugu, Tamil, Marathi, Bangla, Kannada, and Malayalam languages. The salient features include conceptual dictionaries for over 100,000 words across these languages, words and disambiguation mechanism using semantic feature manipulation, and sentence parsers and transfer grammars involving mapping of idiosyncratic systems. Bahubhasha, a pilot project mode, now it is the latest of the MT efforts in Indian languages, but unique in the sense it is going to be the speech-to-speech machine translation system in English, Hindi, Punjabi, Telugu, Tamil, and Malayalam. It is sponsored by TDIL, MIT, Government of India, and executed by a group of institutions initially coordinated by IIIT Hyderabad, and others include CALS, University of Hyderabad, IIT Madras, AUTDC Center Chennai, and CDAC Noida, and IIT Patna. And resource centers for Indian language technologies work for the development of technology resources for Indian languages for Hindi, Telugu, Tamil, Marathi, Bangla, Punjabi, and Kannada. And Bhasha Mandakini and Bharatvani, initiated by Professor Udanayan Singh at SAL Mysore. And Bhasha Mandakini and Bharatvani is a kind of multimedia knowledge through Indian languages. Is a kind of resource center for Indian cultural ideas, managed by SAL Mysore. Sanskrit Sansadhani, a Sanskrit computational toolkit engaged in developing various computational tools for the analysis of Sanskrit text following the Indian grammatical tradition. Tools include Sandhi splitter, translation and conversion into various scripts, morphological analyzer and generator, Astadhyayi simulator, Sanskrit Hindi accessor, and Gaveshika, the search engine for Sanskrit and hypertext, developed at Sanskrit Department of Sanskrit Studies at University of Hyderabad. NLMT, National Language Translation Mission, funded by MEITY at IITM Chennai, and speech-to-speech machine translation, funded by Prime Minister's Secretariat Advisory and coordinated by IITM Chennai. Language learning and teaching tools for Indian languages. So the hypergrammars for Indian languages. Most of the kind of technologies that are developed at various places for Indian languages will be actually integrated into the hypergrammars. A non-linearly organized dynamic grammar based on the hypertext format for various Indian languages and English. Next one, the divergence digital grammars for Indian languages and English. It enables learning and teaching simpler and saves time, effort, and cost. Available now for Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, and Telugu, English, Telugu, and Tamil, etc. And okay, this is the divergence wheel. You have the towards the margins. You see the shallow distinct Indian languages, and at the deeper, it is the most crucial and the syntactic, and the total of outside the morphological, and then outside the surface and marginal rules. And these are the kind of divergence we need to develop in the to develop divergence grammars for Indian languages. And this is the syntactic divergence, where we need to actually tackle for the development of divergence grammars and the transfer grammars for Indian languages to be used in the machine translation system, as well as in the language teaching and learning mechanisms. Divergence grammars for Indian languages and English. Translation divergence is nothing but the distinction or differences that occur between languages when they are translated. Affects the well-formedness of the target language. Divergence grammars capture these linguistic differences and are used for automatic computation. It enables learning and teaching simpler, saves time and effort and cost. Available now for the following languages: Telugu Tamil pair and Hindi Telugu pair and English Telugu Tamil pair. Okay, and conclusion: more language participation with required knowledge base for language technology tools and applications is desired. Address linguistic diversity through technology. Speed up NLP activities and build useful applications. Use of language technology in education, and particularly it to enable higher education to continue the medium of Indian languages and higher education. And language technology helps in universal information access. In future, learning and teaching should transcend from the barriers of languages. Continuity of the medium of education beyond the school into higher education is going to be the norm in the future. Language technologies make languages transparent. Education takes student orientation. It's no more teacher oriented. Students may answer in a language of his or her choice, and that shall be converted into the choice of the evaluator. So there is no language barrier, no more with if when the languages are equipped with the language technology. Thank you. Okay. These are the websites. Those people who are interested can access them for the tools and papers to be downloaded and then maybe go through. Okay, there is also another thing, optical character recognizers. Optical character recognizers for Indian languages have been developed, and different efforts have been put towards the development of recognizing written text images as encoded character strings. A coordinated efforts began with the RCI-LTS and CDAC and others, and they are of course available to Hindi and certain other Indian languages. Okay, thank you. That's it. I stop here.
Master, for your input to
Yeah.
Thank you, Ma.
Yeah, thank you.
No.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to present this.
Now we have few questions to the speakers. I think you can read out. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. I would like to know if all the speakers are available.
Yeah.
The first question is for the first speaker, Professor UN Singh. I hope, sir, you are here. You are with us. We cannot see
Professor UN Singh.
Professor UN Singh, are you there? All right. So I move on to the questions for the next speakers. This question is for Professor Avdesh Kumar Mishra. Your talk focused mother tongues and medium of instruction with respect to school education. Do you think the same policy, for instance, the three-language formula, would be applicable to medium of instruction in higher education institutions?
To graduation and post-graduation, then it's advisable that they work in one language as a medium of instruction, not so many, but they can learn. There should be provision. Materials should be there, online or face-to-face mode. Certain Indian languages should be there that they can learn. Because for adults, it's very easy to learn a second language. Only thing is that they may not master the correct pronunciation of the mother tongue, that or the language that they are learning, but other things can be learned fast. So at a higher level, the more practicable thing will be that only one medium of instruction is there. But of course, don't discontinue these mother tongues if possible. We have to take, so for Hindi speaker, if the medium of instruction is Hindi in Bihar, Uttarakhand, UP, so they can continue with that. And suppose the Gondi is made medium of instruction in school education, so it would be better, advisable that the students can continue as medium of instruction in higher classes also, higher secondary and graduation as well. That is fine. And they can learn the official languages of the state, regional language separately, other than having education in their mother tongue.
Thank you, sir. There is one more question for you. This is about integration and coordination of various language institutions that you have talked about in your lecture. And the question is how and in what ways these language institutions can coordinate with higher education institutions.
Yes, see what happens, those who are involved in school education, like NCERT, SCERT, and DICE, etc., we notice that, right now we have some major languages in the school education system, and those who join these institutions, they have a MA in the concerned languages. But if you look at the syllabus, what they study in MA or BA courses is that it's too heavily loaded with literature. Literature is much more there. The linguistic component is missing, and there is almost none or very little component on, let's say, language education. So that's why the linguists have to be involved. And since they work in different universities, they can be taken together. And then it's not enough to have linguists, because they can tell you about the language teaching methodologies, how to prepare textbooks. But education, of course, is important, giving the inputs of education, that what are the nitty-gritty of educational policies and educational methodologies that can come from institutions like NCERT, SCERT, and DICE. And also, when it comes to developing, say, technical and scientific terminologies, then we have a different organization like CSTT. They are kind of empowered and also specialized to take care of these things. And fourthly, literary societies, because they know what actually is needed. The outsiders who come from university, CSTT, NCERT, SCERT, they may not know the real situation. So literary societies can also be involved. This is how they can distribute work among themselves, and together they can sit together and then see that these things are finalized. This is how I perceive how integration of various institutions can take place.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Professor Anvita Abi, and this question is from her point about core grammar. The question is like this. Madam, you have talked about core grammar of Indian languages. What would be the guiding principles for such a core grammar, the Rup-rekha of the core grammar that you have talked about? Madam, you may have to unmute yourself first. Please unmute yourself first. Professor Abi, unmute yourself first. Yes.
Okay, is it okay now?
Yes, perfect.
See, by core grammar, what I mean is that there are so many linguistic structures which are similar across languages in form and meaning both. Those should be the guiding principles to write the core grammar. And this would be encapsulated in a way that the students may learn this phenomena first and the unique or the defining characteristic feature of their language later. So it's not that one core grammar will be totally sufficient, but it is definitely needed right now that we can perhaps write a core grammar which includes the sound system, the phonological aspects, the morphology, the word formation processes, as well as the syntax, and the other clause structures, which are very similar these days. Look at the explicator compound verbs. Every language has it. You see, or most of the languages have SOV word order and the implications involved with it. So these are the aspects that can be certainly placed in the core grammar.
There is one more question for Professor Abi, and this question is about the suggestion that you have given in your talk regarding the establishment of National Commission of Scripts, and it is asking how this kind of an establishment can resolve script conflicts like language conflicts.
You see, well, that is the idea. That is why I'm proposing a national commission, because it can take all the issues involved with the various conflicts that have arisen, because as you know, the script has become an identity marker in the past. And this has to be relearned by people, that the script cannot be the identity marker. It is your speech. It is your uniqueness. It's your characteristics, feature of your speech which gives you the identity, not the script. Had it been so, the languages, European languages like Spanish, German, French, English, all use Roman script. But nobody has lost, no language has lost its identity. right? Similarly, there are many languages within the Hindi belt which are written in Devanagari script, but they don't lose their identity. See, I visualize that this commission can not only resolve the script controversies, but it can also help with the help of the technological people as well as with the linguists how to evolve scripts for the languages. I give you a personal experience. We tried to develop a script for Toda. And since every Toda is bilingual in Tamil, initially we gave them a modified version of Tamil script. But they rejected, the entire community rejected it completely, and they said no, Tamil does not have enough number of sound markers which can identify our language. So we had to redo the whole exercise, and finally we gave them a script which is now being published. The whole book is being published by Sahitya Academy on Toda oral tradition. On left hand side is the Toda script, on right hand side is the translation in Tamil. This is basically the script which was MNO was using in 1935, but we had to do a lot of modifications to it. What I'm trying to say that we can devise script, but we cannot impose the script on a society. The script has to be accepted by the society. Then only we can start applying it. And so there is a lot of give and take. And in fact, this is a process in which the community is involved. And that's why a commission is needed which can work at a larger scale, also at a micro and macro scales, so that it can invite community members to look at the device or the expert's device and then give feedback.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much for your explanation about the question. And the next question is for Professor Uma Maheshwar Rao. This question states like this. There is a gap between technology for Indian languages and technology in Indian languages. So how do we reduce this gap between technology for Indian languages and technology in Indian languages?
Okay. Technology for Indian languages. Okay, maybe I think when you translate from language X to Indian languages, you need actually a kind of a corresponding Indian language text, Indian language structures, like between English and Indian languages or any foreign language to Indian languages. You need to have actually bilingual corpora across foreign languages and Indian languages, and across bilingual lexicon and different kinds of transfer grammars across Indian foreign languages, Indian languages. These kind of resources are still we are short of. That we need to build up. But our focus is mainly now between Indian languages. So we have actually excellent resources today to build these things in Indian languages. Of course, over and above, we need to actually use machine learning techniques and artificial intelligence to overcome the language barrier. Yes, these two. One is actually having the transfer grammars from other languages to Indian languages, and actually using most innovative technology within Indian languages to overcome the language barrier. Yeah, this is my answer.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy that Professor UN Singh has joined us, and we can go back to the question for Professor UN Singh. Sir, are you there? Can you listen to us? Can you hear us? Sir, you'll have to unmute yourself, and I read out the question for you. If schools teach or offer classical languages, how will it be feasible with the dearth of such expertise or teachers who are available to teach? Over to Professor UN Singh. Professor UN Singh, are you there? I guess there is some connectivity problem on the side of. Processing, if you are not able to relay your ideas in audio format, you may type it on the chat box.
Yeah.
All right, we'll post the question. A question is already there in the chat box. You may reply in the chat box.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Can you please go ahead? So if you're facing network issue, can you go to an outer? Yeah. I think we should proceed. We are not able to hear Professor Singh. There is some network problem, so we shall proceed with the. Yeah, if there are more questions, please put it in the chat box. Thank you.
As I said, this is an intention document, and it is now encouraging, giving direction to your central institutes of Kannada, central institute of Telugu, or central institute of Odia to move in a certain direction to make so many teachers ready so that they can take over this role. Now, this is certainly giving a very useful direction to what the central institutes of classical studies can do. Rather than only limiting themselves to translating, documenting the ancient texts. So, to that extent, this is a very interesting challenge for these central institutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, everybody. And we had a very nice session, got also extended. And now we would request Professor D.G. Rao, Director CIL, to
Thank you. That now I think our first speaker, Professor Udayanarayan Singh, highlighted the importance of the multilingualism and especially the role of RLCs and to training the teachers in other languages. The conceptualized understanding is more important than the readability. And he has also highlighted this classical languages concern. Of course, here the classical languages, we have already taken, CL has taken the decision in the meeting of the classical language centers, and they prepare they are requested to prepare the teaching learning materials in coming years. I think they are in that direction because of based on the NEP recommendations. And beside that, we are also contemplating to prepare online classical language certificate programs so that we can wider dissemination in this direction. The classical now all the classical centers have been established, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Oriya. I think in coming years they will take up this job additional than the translation and the other activities. As per the NTM, should be help in the government this implementation of the teacher training. The Udanaran Singh highlighted, wherein yes, already we are in the process of it. I think many state teachers are they are being trained in terms of the translation, and then the especially testing services. NTS also is doing in this direction, and then Udanaran Singh also highlighted about the documentation of the oral languages. So that is also we can contemplate it, and these are some of the highlights of it. And reference to this, Avdesh Mishra has, Professor Avdesh Mishra has highlighted the mother tongues, the diversity of the mother tongues in the country, and then the mother tongue education and the problems of the mother tongue education at the school, and of course we can have the glossary preparation of the resources like glossaries, dictionaries, etc. I think CL is have done a lot of work on this, and still we are in the process of developing more glossaries and the dictionaries in the direction. And next speaker, Professor Anvita Abi, I think she has highlighted the language ecology. There should be much emphasis on the about the language documentation and then interdisciplinary approach, especially genomic studies reinforcing the convergence and contact between the languages. And she has highlighted the National Commission of the Indian Script that can be discussed in a bigger form in future in the context of the higher education. Of course, she also mentioned the imposition of the suggestion in the NEP and the acceptance level of Hindi at the country level she has highlighted. These are some of the pertinent issues, and she also discussed about the new educational policy, especially school education is concerned 5+3+3+4 pattern. She has given her views and how which language and where to be inculcated. And then the fourth speaker, Professor Uma Maheswara, has highlighted the technology, language technologies in the education system, either in the implementation of the mother tongue or the higher education. Of course, here there's a lot of interdisciplinary approach is required, as the NEP says, more of a interdisciplinary, interinstitutional collaborative works are to be contemplated so that we can come out with the better results. And this is in a brief of the four speakers speak, and then in my concluding remarks, wherein of course we can aware of the variety of the cultures and implementation of 3 languages for the NEP highlighted, for which I think CAL and then other institute, especially our RLCs, will have a greater role, further implementation of the strengthening the 3 language formula. And then the classical language, already just I mentioned in the Udanaran Singh lecture, and our classical centers established, and we can take up the needed textual materials and online programs for the school education concerned, that we can interlink it. Many other higher education institutes also in collaboration with that we can prepare. Especially teacher education is concerned, yes, there is a greater role in the higher education, because the NEP has recommended 4 years integrated program in language education. Of course, the CAL has also, a year back we have contemplated to prepare the, structurally we already prepared the 4 years integrated language education, wherein the literature and linguistics and the education together, there will be a strong integrated approach. Qualitative language teachers can be prepared at undergraduate, but similarly, the country is also lacking pedagogical areas in not only the languages, in all the discipline, for which now the greater role in the higher education, they have to multidisciplinary approach, they have to prepare the language pedagogy, and not only the language pedagogy, other disciplines also we require in a multidisciplinary approach, in especially the higher education institute. for which the NEP is highlighted very much the interdisciplinary and interinstitutional collaboration and bring out the better programs, qualitative programs. Of course, the language technology is concerned. We have the we have to go in a long way. Of course, Professor Moma Vaisra has mentioned many of the areas which are mostly the inter-institutes and interdisciplinary approach. Now, all the higher education, the institute and the university should, instead of isolation, they should have the more of interdisciplinary programs for better quality products we should develop so that they are employable, and for which NEP has very much highlighted in this approach, because since now the CBCS system is also in operation, and this and then the NEP also recommended for this credits carrying of the credits, so that the student can get the different credits and different from the different disciplines, and so that he can have the overall the structural program which can be employable wherever the student has a deficiency. That's why we have to plan more of the multidisciplinary programs in future, in especially higher education institutes. I think this way I thank the four speakers, and they have highlighted the concerns of the NEP and then the language concerns in the country and perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Hi, Uday, Professor Anvit.
It's my opportunity. Now,
Yes.
now it's my pleasure to Professor Umar Maheshwarrao. You want to say something?
No, I'm thanking everybody for giving us.
Okay, so it's my pleasure to propose a vote of thanks, and in the first place, I would like to thank the Ministry of Education, and in particular our Secretary, Shri Amit Khareji, and Joint Secretary, Shri Ashwini Kumar. I also have the pleasure to thank the experts who expressed their views and guided us with insights. Professor U.N. Singh, Padma Shri Professor Anvita Abi, Professor Avdesh Kumar Mishra, Professor G. Uma Maheshwar Rao. And I would also like to thank the audience from various academic institutions for your patience and giving time to this program, so as to understand the salient aspects of the New Education Policy 2020. I also thank other stakeholders who were present online and viewed this program. And finally, I would like to thank the technical team at National Informatics Center and CIIL Mysore, and Director Professor D.G. Rao, Director CIIL, and other colleagues at the Institute. Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Thank you.